Hello, everyone out there. Oh my gosh. My voice is like trembling just like thinking about it. I didn't think that I was gonna get so what is that? My nerves would be racked up coming on here, but I'm gonna try to sorry, I apologize. I'm gonna try to work through my nerves as best as I possibly can and get through this live stream in a very direct, clear, concise manner because obviously, as you can tell, this is a very heavy topic to talk about. It's something that I've been contemplating for a really long time. So before I get into anything, thank you guys. Before I get into anything, let me just introduce myself to those who are just coming on stream, or who are just new to me. My name is Julian Infantino. People who are already on here, they already know me, but for those who don't, my name is Julian Infantino. I go by the stage name Julie, and I have been an aspiring Japanese pop idol. Not really Japanese pop idol in the sense where I pursue J-pop idol activities in Japan, but I do, used to sing and dance to J-pop music, and I would dub myself or used to use the term overseas idol, where I would take whatever passions, as far as my idol passions go, and I would take J-pop influences and then put them into my performances and whatnot. So, and then obviously, as you can see in the screen and whatnot, that not in the screen, in the description, that in this live stream I'll be revealing my experiences and what I've dealt through as far as meeting and being with my previous producer, Don Nguyen. Now, I wouldn't say briefly, but I have touched upon him in my previous live streams. But this live stream will be mainly targeting the abuse that I've dealt with him, and also just everything else in between. Before I even get into the story of what happened, the more of the nitty-gritty of what happened between me and him, because this is a very layered and convoluted story. Before I get into that, I like to talk about narcissism first, give everyone a briefer on exactly what it is, and then once I'm able to go through the lesson of like me explaining what narcissism is, narcissistic abuse, narcissistic recovery, and all that, just so people can get more digestible information so they can put that into perspective. Afterwards, I'm going to actually talk and flesh out my experiences. So disclaimer, pretty hefty disclaimer, because I know that people are going to take bits and pieces, they're going to convolute it in the way that they want, and I understand that everyone has subjective experiences. There is no one side to every story, there's multiple facets to it. So keep in mind that this live stream may or may not be triggering. I'm sure it will be very triggering to those who have dealt with similar experiences and whatnot, so please listen to your own discretion. I am not a licensed therapist, nor am I a licensed psychologist, nor do I proclaim to be one. My content is not meant to replace legal, financial, and or professional advice, so if you are dealing with these experiences, please go seek with a professional. I'm only speaking on my own research and my own personal experiences, and I will not claim responsibility nor liability to whatever you do with the information presented to you. If you need elaboration, please feel free to email me. As far as my perspective and my sources go, which I'll happily oblige to provide to you. Another thing that I want to add is that in the description below is there's fair use claims, as far as like DMCA and all of that. So yeah. Now, if someone were to email me about like anything, it will take me days or even like a week or so to respond to said emails, because I'm still in the midst of recovery. It's been a really long process, a long, grueling process. So I appreciate your patience if you would be waiting on a response from me. I will not accept any unnecessary emails as far as small talk. If you come off any like rude or gossipy or just downright disrespectful, I am not obligated to respond to said emails. Let's try to make things as clear cut and as tactful as possible. Please and thank you. Now, as always, my streams are pretty lengthy, and I will not condense or water down my content so I can talk about the topic at hand in depth. After the stream, you can wait like a day or so for me to provide timestamps so you can skip to the portion of the video that you want to listen to. The reason why I didn't open up about this sooner is because I was guided to wait for the right opportunity to reveal this information. I kind of had to wait until things played out and whatnot. And then B, I needed my time. I needed to have time to heal and garner up my strength to be able to be brave enough to open up in this manner. So a lot of this takes a lot of mental fortitude on my behalf. So if I do come off emotional, I apologize on, if I fluctuate and whatnot. That being said, I sincerely apologize for being quiet about this for so long. It really wasn't my intention to keep my mouth shut for this long. I have been, again, it's not that I've been like waiting per se, but just trying to see the best opportunity to bring up this information. Now, anyone is free to discuss their points in the comments, though for the sake of energy conservation, I will only respond to the comments in this live stream and any important emails that are directly sent to me. Let's see. I will go section by section before responding to comments, just so I can keep things on track and I don't get distracted. There are multiple sides to every story, like I said before. Feel free to look at this from a critical lens and form your own conclusions. Do not go and attack the people that I've mentioned in this live stream. I trust that this video is sent out with the intention of spreading awareness so that situations like this never happen again. Screenshots and emails of my claims is linked in the description below. I have a Google Drive of emails and screenshots and whatnot. If you would like me to provide further elaboration, again, I'll be glad to do so. On Wednesday, and I'll announce this, in the same Google Drive link, in the same Google Drive folder link, I will have video clips of the calls that I had between me and him, because I've actually recorded full-length like video calls that have transpired between him and I. So it was very triggering for me to like look back at those video calls again and just like look at it again. So I have to like, again, build up the mental fortitude to like look at it again, because it's very triggering, and then I have to sift through it and then make sure that I upload it appropriately. So just wait until Wednesday until I put those up. And then finally, as far as when it comes to dealing with narcissism and narcissistic abuse, there are channel recommendations that I've also linked in the description below that you can check out. There are other people that have more experiences that they can elaborate on, that are more knowledgeable on this topic than I am. This is something that I'm still learning on my own accord. So, yeah. There's a lot of factors that go into opening up about abuse. It's your comfort that matters the most since you're affected. I appreciate... I appreciate your compassion. Thank you for understanding. you don't have to apologize for not wanting to talk with everyone about personal things that hurt you. Thank you again for understanding. I think it's my obligation to reveal this information. I'm just the type of person where I don't feel right keeping my mouth shut for too long. I'm also the type of person where it's like, if something is being dishonest or the truth is not coming out one way or another, I feel like it's just very morally unjust and corrupt of me to, not say anything, because that just makes me a bystander, and I don't want to placate to that. I do not want to enable in that type of agenda. I won't hit anyone unless you tell me to. Okay. I'll take your word on that. So yeah. So now we start. Now, where does this all start? Origins. Keep in mind that narcissism is prevalent in our everyday society. This is an issue that is more common than you think, and it's actually very normalized. Majority of us in general are very desensitized to these types of behaviors, and we can't see it overtly due to conditioning, like social conditioning, as far as, not only, again, in our everyday society, but also the situations, places, things that we put ourselves into, and not to mention, it also starts in the home. So if you were raised with abusive or neglectful parents, sometimes you won't be able to recognize the abuse until later, after you get out of said thing. Like, once you're able to have like a clear head and you're able to look at things from a different perspective, you wouldn't realize how bad it actually was until you realize how bad it actually was. So yeah. I'd say a majority of humanity is born from a fallen state. I'd like to think that in essence we are all pure beings. We started off that way, but somewhere along the lines we have corrupted. We've been tainted and corrupted, by the world at large. I'd also say, even if you're not, you don't believe in spirituality, I do believe that currently in this day and age, we are in the midst of spiritual warfare. It's not something that, again, you can like physically see with your own two eyes. It's something that it's more that is felt and whatnot. And I'm sure that you guys can like feel with 2020 and the pandemic and like everything that's happened, like a lot of things have come to the surface for a lot of people. And you can still like feel that tension and whatnot. So yeah. What is a narcissist exactly? So the Oxford Dictionary definition of a narcissist is, quote, a person who has excessive interest or admiration of themselves. An example of said thing, it says, narcissists who think the world revolves around them. This is the true definition of narcissism. Most narcissists actually lack a secure sense of self-esteem, and their internal world is filled with mostly shame. So on the outside, they may seem like they got it all together, but on the inside, it's barren. It's very void of things. Externally, they may seem to lack guilt or remorse because they make justifications for their behavior. Many have weak boundaries and will do whatever they can to get their way. Most only care about maintaining their ego, and a lot of them are extremely insecure and their confidence is faked. Keep in mind that this is a current day buzzword and people throw the label around without actually understanding it. As far as like the bystander effects goes, most do not question or even critically analyze the current world that we're in. We're just, we're pumped up and like we're fed a lot of like false narratives and stuff like that. And of course, as a human species, we need community to guide us. We need other people to guide us because we are an interdependent species. Like, we need other people to connect and bond with. But the problem with that is that when people solely rely on just placating to the status quo, and not even that, but just following the crowd and what they say and what they believe in, all because it's what's that logical fallacy? Ad populum? I forgot my words are really jumbled right now, but it's like, it's a logical fallacy to believe that, oh, if the majority believes it's true, or if the majority believes it's correct or right, therefore it's true. That's never necessarily the case. And I'd always implement following your own intuition, you know, and your own inner light, because you know yourself more than anyone else over anything else. A lot of people, again, normalize these types of behaviors, or even are desensitized to it, and they don't really see it as quote unquote that big of a deal. And these types of bystanders are also dangerous in the sense where it's like, even though if they're not the perpetrators of said thing, they are just as lethal, because they let things slip by, and it places further harm and pressure on actual victims who suffer from said things. You know, that's why we can't really necessarily give everyone the benefit of the doubt and just believe that everyone is, you know, quote unquote have good. Also, good and bad are also subjective terms, because obviously there's nuance. As far as narcissistic traits go, we all have them, all right? Narcissism lies on a spectrum. I have them, you have them. You know, just as we have narcissistic traits, we also have empathic traits. It just depends on which side we lean towards, and it's important to keep a balance. So narcissism and being a narcissist isn't necessarily a quote unquote bad term. Again, it's the abuse that comes with the term that is the problem. It's narcissistic abuse that is the issue. It's not being a narcissist, quote unquote, per se, that is inherently a bad thing. It's just the abuse that comes with it. Because having narcissistic traits and then being abusive are two different things. At the end of the day, again, we are all human, so we all suffer from this, whether it would be directly or indirectly. Some may be conscious of this behavior, most than not. A lot of people are very unconscious to this behavior, whether they're enacting it on other people or whether they're taking it in. Some are more overt with the behavior, as in, like, you can see it in plain day. Like, this is what you would call grandiose narcissism. You know, it's more overt. Others may be more covert, where you would call this covert narcissism, where it's a lot more underhanded and manipulative. Also, as far as the word manipulation goes, I'll explain more on that as well. Some are more malignant as others, meaning malignant to the point where it's very, very difficult for these types of people to change. Some can even mimic empathic traits. Regardless, it really all depends on the individual, because everyone's different. Narcissism, psychopathy, sociopathy, they're just all terms. Again, when people label things as like, oh, you're a narcissist, you're a psychopath, you're a sociopath, da-da-da, right? First of all, you should not be throwing these terms around the same way as you shouldn't be throwing these terms around saying, oh, I just have OCD because I'm a neat freak or something like that. These are medical, what is that? These are like medical diagnoses, right? I wouldn't say no. Narcissism is not a medical diagnosis and stuff like that. But as far as like being a psychopath and sociopath, it is, right? Because these are personality disorders. To say if someone had like a full-on personality disorder, right, or just calling them that, right, again, you have to leave that entirely up to a professional who actually knows what they're talking about, right? And again, those things you have to keep in mind are all just terms. You can call someone like a psychopath or a sociopath and be like, oh yeah, this person's to blame because they're bad, because they're da 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 da. But, you know, again, like, there are people out there who do suffer from these personality disorders, and they are trying to get better and they are trying to heal. So not everyone is not everyone who suffers from these said personality disorders, or even fall along that spectrum, are inherently, you know, quote unquote bad people, sort of say. The best way to bring awareness to this is to remove the stigma from the topic at hand. I referenced the channel below, Kanika Batra. I think she is one that deals with these things, and I think her channel is very enlightening when it comes to talking about these issues. This means, and I know this is really difficult to do, I'm still struggling trying to deal with these kinds of things, but like, understanding these people through a lens of compassion while simultaneously not condoning their harmful behavior is a must, because again, personally, still, this is something that I need to do. So we all have toxic traits, and we all need to keep accountability as far as like how we all go and whatnot. So as far as these people's upbringing goes, most of them were raised in a volatile, dysfunctional household. They started off very sensitive, but these traumas amplified their fear of the world. They deal with constant paranoia, and they feel like the world is out to get them, and they're very on edge. Most struggle with emotional regulation because they weren't taught emotional regulation. The way that they were taught is to, lash out and privy themselves to anger. Anger was okay, that was fine, that was like a norm in these types of households. I lived in these types of households. But tears, crying was not all right, because it showed weakness or vulnerability, and people would equate, or I'd say like these types of people would equate weakness and vulnerability as a bad thing, when it's actually the opposite. Your tears are meant to expel toxins out of your body. It's a form of release. Now, because narcissists in general, they lack a sense of self, the way that they are able to emotionally regulate is via other people, via external validation from other people. Enmeshed empaths, I briefly touched upon this before, but I'll talk about it again, is that enmeshed empaths can fall prey to this. So if you're a very empathetic person and you truly care about people a lot, you'd have to be really careful and learn how to set your boundaries when it comes to overextending and overgiving yourself to these types of people, because they can very well take advantage of your kindness. Later on in life, as their bad habits are embedded, it becomes a lot harder for them to break them. And when they witness individuals that are a lot more peaceful and stable than them, instead of working on themselves to get to that point, they seek to sabotage others, thus sabotaging themselves from forming healthier connections. It's a very vicious cycle. Usually communities that cater to narcissists are maintained by neglecting these types of people and turning around, accusing them of being the problem. And they won't really do much to assist the individual that's being harmed by taking ownership or extending compassion, which then further exacerbates the issues and delegitimizes like the people that are in pain and whatnot. Again, it's a cycle, it's a vicious cycle that is like really hard to break out of, and it's something that is it's also intergenerational as well. And also finally, narcissists did not learn how to reflect on bad behavior, so they cope through distractions and suppression. And these can go in repetitive cycles as time goes on. As they grow older, these cycles get hard to break, like I said before. Now let me just go through let me just look through this. Let me read your question. Let me read your comments first. When you talk about narcissistic abuse, is it relating to people with NPD or just downright egotistical, abusive people? Both. Usually, again, you could be diagnosed with NPD, but still like not be abusive. It's something that you have to be like self-aware of. I feel that the term narcissistic abuse, it can be misused a lot. Not saying that you are, though. Yeah, no, it can be misused a lot. Again, even saying the word narcissism or saying that someone is a narcissist, it's a current day buzzword. It's something that can be used a lot. And that's why I wanted to break down and like really dissect, like, okay, like we need to be clear on, as far as like a solid and actual concrete definition of what narcissism is. And it's not even like a concrete thing. It's same thing like when you say like racism, right? Racism is a very multifaceted, multi-layered issue. There's not just like one thing that's like strictly defines racism. It's like many different things as well. You can really say the same thing when it comes to narcissism. Let me read this. And it's definitely important to recognize that there are people with these conditions who are working on them. Yeah, exactly. And there are people who aren't working on them. Yeah. I think, again, it really depends on the individual, like if they're working on them and if they're not working on them. Is narcissism caused by childhood abuse? That's like a nature versus like nurture argument, but more often than not, yes. It more often it origins or like stems from childhood abuse and neglect. Here in the UK, it's rarely diagnosed. Is that because they rarely seek help? It's not because these people rarely seek help for it. It's that this is also a more recent like developing topic. It's only recent that more people are like actually talking about narcissism and whatnot. And actually, a lot of therapists are not really trained to deal with these kinds of things because it's a very complex issue. You know, I'd say, for example, there is someone who specializes in narcissistic recovery abuse, psychologist, and she goes by Dr. Romani, and she has experienced firsthand narcissistic abuse, right? These types of people that specialize in these things, very rare to come across, you know, because again, the thing is that narcissism is prevalent in our everyday culture. It's difficult to spot, but once you're able to like go through the motions and like see, then you would be able to like have red flags that like, you know, even the most subtle things, you'll start noticing like, oh, this is like, you know, bad and whatnot. Also, when it comes to narcissists, right, some may go to therapy to seek help to try to get better, and they either just like relapse because it's really hard for them to break out of their comfort zone. More often than not, they would even go to therapy, or they would go to therapists not to get better, but to find ways to strengthen their manipulation and their own manipulative tactics and whatnot. So it can all be like appearance based, where it's like, oh yeah, I look like I'm getting help, but then they, you know, go back and do the same things like over and over and over again. So that's something to keep in mind. I think general neglect causes narcissism. Exactly. Not necessarily abuse, but abuse can often cause it. Well, see, I coincide abuse and neglect both interchangeably, because neglect is a form of abuse. Also, I don't think a lot of narcissists feel the need to seek help. Exactly. Like a lot of them, you have to be like self-aware to the point to acknowledge that you need help to begin with. Did you know a narcissist and a psychopath are in the same cluster, which is scary? What do you mean? Yeah, I'm sure there's overlapping behaviors. I mean, oh, you mean like narcissism and psychopathy and sociopathy and like cluster, you mean cluster B personality? Yeah, it's all in the same cluster. Sorry, I was like a little, you know, again, I'm still learning about this topic as well. So this is just something that I'm trying to break down as well. I'm not an expert, keep in mind. Now the next thing, before I go into like any further comments, before anyone like comments more, I'd like to go into the next section. Manipulation, right? Manipulation is not necessarily a quote-unquote bad thing or used for malicious intent. It's just a way for someone to get what they need indirectly. Keep in mind that we all do it, but it can be abused. Because people use manipulation, like, oh, you're manipulative, like that's a dirty word and stuff like that. Keep in mind, it's all about intent and what they need and whatnot. But, you know, overusing that and being manipulatively abusive, that's a bad thing, obviously. Like, you know, they discovered this method they discovered that, like, you know, manipulating and like lying was a way for them to get what they want in childhood, because it worked for them in childhood, so they continue doing it. So if they were raised in situations where lying was the norm, they would mimic said behavior, and they would also lie in order to get their way and whatnot. They manipulate because they get something they feel is missing in their life to fill whatever void that they need inside. It's very difficult for narcissists to generate their own inner light within them. And again, like, even when we start off as kids, like, it's really difficult for us to like have like our own inner self, or like have a good connection with ourselves and stuff like that. Again, these types of individuals have lost touch with their own true self. So the only way that they're able to get by and survive is through their fake self. Some of them have like a limited palette of emotions, and they lack positive stimulation. And this makes them very inclined to mood swings of apathy, rage, and adrenaline high as defaults. And then they just keep like going back to like apathy, rage, high again, apathy, rage, high again. It's again, very vicious cycle. I know that when I've suffered from these kinds of things, and like when I actually like empathetically felt like a narcissist, it really feels like you're a black hole, like you're a void. You really feel like no matter what you, like, your spirit is absolutely crushed. Everything in sight, like, not like everything in sight, like not only it annoys you, it bothers you, but you are so apathetic to everyone and everything, and nothing really can generate joy or a sense of fulfillment. You just feel completely barren and empty on the inside. It's actually really terrible, because this is like a constant repeat on their life. Not a constant repeat, but like a constant thing that they have to deal with. So they don't manipulate just one person, but they manipulate like multiple people to get their needs met, because not one person is like able to suffice for them. At their core, they seek power because it makes them feel safe and in control. They make decisions based on their own survival versus what benefits groups as a whole. So, if you're trying to offer like a win-win incentive to them, they think that you're putting up a challenge with them, when that is obviously, with someone who's a sound mind, they wouldn't think that's the case, but they like seeing win-lose scenarios where they're the winner and the other person's the loser, because again, it makes them feel like they're safe and they're in control, because if they are able to have the upper hand, that means that they are able to survive and get ahead of other people. Using control and confusion is the way for them to regulate their own fear that they have internally within themselves, because they lack proper insight on an individual. And because they lack proper insight on an individual, they're actually further away from their true intuitive knowing. So most of these types of people are pretty impulsive and reckless with their decision making, or even indecision, sort of say. So once you're able to like recognize it, it's actually really predictable to notice the patterns in the way that they operate. Someone wrote a quote here. I'm just going to like quote it here, but someone wrote, we all have the capacity to manipulate, and vulnerabilities to be manipulated, narcissists or not. What I found with narcissists is that they end up abusing, that they don't want to learn to communicate their needs clearly. They don't want to see who they are, what they need, so they manipulate, grow resentful, hurt, get envious, etc. And since they can't confront themselves, they project and shield their ego, ergo, they never grow as people, and they keep abusing people who want to love them. So they could be offered like, a really good, like a good kind-hearted person who actually cares about that, and they'll find ways to just sabotage that at any given moment, because again, they lack a proper self-esteem. And usually people who have like a healthy self-esteem would be able to recognize like someone who's trying to extend true kindness and compassion towards them. These types of people need to learn how to feel whole and worthy within themselves before they go out and like seek other people. But unfortunately, more often than not, they don't. They don't come to terms with. So here are some ways that you can spot these types of behaviors, their gameplay and whatnot. So there's the Jekyll and Hyde thing, where at one point they come off charismatic, alluring, and friendly. On the other hand, they can flip the switch and turn out to be malicious, conniving, and cruel on the other. And they, flip back and forth between these things because the way that they see things is just very black and white. Rage comes from self-preservation, because in their point of view, again, like I said, fragility and vulnerability is seen as a quote-unquote bad thing to these types of people. Now, guilt tripping and shaming. They will feed off your insecurities and use them against you. Even if you are a seemingly stable person, they will find, it's kind of like Jenga. They will take pulling blocks, and they'll keep trying to pull blocks to get you unstable, to try to get you to fall. Because that makes them reassured about themselves and makes them feel like they have the upper hand. And these types of people will put you on a guilt trip to come out victorious, to justify the abuse that they've done to you. For example, right? There was an instance where if I was calling out the truth on someone, right? I'd say like guilt tripping someone into apologizing instead of, trying to encourage someone that like, hey, this is the wrong thing, and them naturally feeling like healthy guilt and shame to actually apologize would be, a better solution when it comes to situations like that. But I was threatened to be sued once by an individual in my YouTube comments for speaking up the truth. Now, I wasn't really like I wasn't really the best at delivering, but someone threatened to sue me, and I'm like, you know what? Go ahead, do it. It's like, oh, you should like, when people are saying like, oh, you should be ashamed, like, you should apologize for speaking up or like saying your truth and whatnot. If you don't genuinely feel sorry for what you're saying, like, what's to say that an apology is gonna you know, help out with that, you know? Like, I think that apologies need to be genuine, in general. So if you are the type of person who guilt trips yourself a lot, and I used to be the type of person where I would constantly guilt trip myself a lot, still kind of get into those moments and whatnot, they will use your guilt against you. Yeah. So next one is triangulation, a way for an individual to bring an outsider into a dynamic to play middleman without confronting the person directly. It's a way for them to divide and conquer. And also in the cases of triangulation, they can also play out as the perpetrator and also the savior at the same time. It gets really tricky. You know, they would create the chaotic situation just so you can go back to them, and so they can like create a false type of resolve or resolution to said thing, and then we'll cycle back to the same thing all over again. Word salad. People who deal with these kinds of things will use disorganized and indirect speech to keep your focus away from the topic at hand. Now, keep in mind that this isn't something that not everyone does this like intentionally or maliciously as far as like word salad goes. Some people legitimately have, you know, like for example, like ADHD. Some people have difficulty when it comes to connecting the dots and like being direct and straightforward to the point. So, what is that? So I wrote a quote here. The term narcissistic word salad is essentially a misuse of an important psychological term. Instead of referring to an involuntary verbal sign of severe mental illness such as schizophrenia, it is being used as a slang term for a type of narcissistic speech that is purposefully confusing. So again, it's about whether or not they are intentionally trying to confuse you or not. Some may intentionally try to confuse you with word salad. Others may, you know, unintentionally just, you know, didn't mean to cause harm. They just don't know. Like, there's like a lot of mental confusion and fog in their brains. So it's really hard for them to be direct and straight to the point. Gaslighting. I'm sure people have already heard this term before, but gaslighting is basically rewriting history by making you doubt your perception of it and making you doubt your reality of the things that have happened along the way. And they plant seeds of doubt to cloud your sense of judgment. Circular thinking. They will not strive towards concrete solutions so they can keep the loop going and benefit off of the fear-mongering. Flattery and excessive admiration. They'll pile on compliments, enable your behavior, and butter you up just to get in your quote-unquote good side. Their sense of identity relies on being agreeable rather than sticking to their own personal core values, which their core values is something that they don't have as much. They can say things, but it's not something that, you know, as far as action-wise go, it doesn't align. So keep in mind when it comes to like words versus actions. Love bombing. This isn't necessarily like a bad thing, but this could be a red flag. Some people can be actually really enthusiastically, you know, they like to say, oh, I love you and I care about you, and they come on too strongly. You know, so be careful. Like, love bombing isn't necessarily like a bad thing, but it's something that you'd have to watch out for. Initially, people would come on too strong, too quickly, make you talk for hours, and make you believe that you're the only special one for them. Some of these people would also provide gifts and excessive adoration to make you fall for them. Now, I'm the type of person where, like, I don't like flirting, but if someone that I'm not on close terms with, like, you know, love bombs me or even makes me feel in that way, or they use the word love, I don't take the word love too lightly, especially if they're trying to flirt with me on the terms of like saying, for example, right? If someone says, you're mine, right? That really rubs me off the wrong way. And I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I am my own. Don't fucking say that. So yeah. Intermittent reinforcement. This can also tie in with love bombing, is where they breadcrumb. They give a little so they can take a lot. So they would like make it seem like they're about to like, you know, make a full-on attempt to commit to what they're doing, but they'll dip their foot in the water just to pull it out again, so it's not like they really care about like long-term commitment. They just they like fishing in and out, kind of like, you have a carrot dangling from a string, and they're trying to use that as a way to get you hooked and addicted to them. Idealization and devaluation, they will also lean to extremes of this, where it's like, if you do a good thing that is deemed good in their eyes, then they'll idealize and praise the shit out of you. But the minute that you turn on them and do one small bad thing, even if you weren't intentionally trying to do anything bad, right, they'll immediately shame you and devalue you and treat you as if you're utter garbage and shit. So these people will lean to those types to extremes if the targeted individual doesn't behave in the way that they anticipated. Finally, they use silent treatment and ghosting as a way to also maintain control and to see if you are going to go and chase after them. These types of people will refuse to admit wrongdoing and will avoid confrontation at all costs, since taking ownership of their own part of the problem, they're taking ownership of their own role in the conflict makes them uncomfortable, because again, they do not want to admit to shame. Shame is a core wound that they have. So it doesn't matter whether or not it's good shame or good shame in the sense where it's like, okay, I won't say good shame, but a healthy sense of shame where it's like, oh, I did something, let me correct it, right? It's shame that has accumulated over time, like over years, over time, because they lack to acknowledge the problem. The shame is still there, and it's always going to be there until they're able to take ownership of said shame, which more often than not, in cases with people who deal with these things, don't really do so. Never mind, other parties, like other people on the end who are putting in extraneous amounts of effort to resolve conflict and talk sense into these folks. Some of them just cannot be reasoned with. Anyway, let me read these comments. Let me see. A lot of narcissists are probably rewarded for their behavior, hence they wouldn't feel the need to seek help. Yeah, of course. Exactly. They're not rewarded. They get away with it very easily. As someone who is familiar with Ryo Don, he did these exact things. Huh. Yeah. About excessive gifts. Flashbacks when I cut my abusive ex-boyfriend, he kept making burner phone numbers to text me that he will pay me $100,000, $500,000 just to talk to me. I obviously did not accept that. Oh my god, my ex with burner phones. Man, I feel bad for kids who have parents that are like this. Yeah, it's sickening, to say the least. So the next thing, right? Now, for the next section, these people have a limited mindset and very narrow-minded when it comes to their thinking. The only thing that these folks are focused on, which is a very unfortunate circumstance, because these people are in a lot of pain. They are suffering a lot. But again, it's no excuse to make other people suffer with them and whatnot. So the only thing that they are really focused on is their tunnel vision, because they're only focused on their pain and how to get out of said pain. What they're not realizing is that they're intentionally or unintentionally putting themselves in more pain by dishing out that pain to other people, which is like, make it make sense. But how they cope is through projection. So whatever that they're dealing with, if they say, oh, you are like da 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 da, most often than not, they're not saying this to you. They're saying it to themselves. They don't want to admit it to themselves that this is the internal dialogue that they're dealing with in their head. So it's, again, easier for them to project all the blame and baggage and put it onto you when you are probably more than likely not even at fault for said things, unless you're really self-aware and you know that you haven't done anything wrong. They will make assumptions about people instead of investigating people thoroughly. Like, this is their blind spot. This is like a major blind spot when it comes to these types of people, unfortunately, is that, again, they'll make assumptions instead of properly taking the time to really get to know a person, because, again, they're so focused on their own pain and and keeping up their own false self disregard the other people around them because they think, okay, everyone's all the same. It's my world, it's my way or the highway kind of thing. But it's like they don't recognize that it's like, no, other people are different. We all have different needs and we all have our own things that we need to deal with. It's not all about you, So black and white thinking, I've said this before, said it again. They're privy to lean to extremes without understanding nuance or balance, which again is a very dangerous thing. And most of these are predictable if you are aware of them and you lack, most are predictable. Again, most of these people are predictable if you're aware enough, and they lack the foresight of seeing consequences in the long term for them. They're not paying attention to the consequences that happen to them in the long term. The only thing that they're focused on is just like, okay, my instant gratification. I need this now. I need this now. I need this now. Speaking of instant gratification, goes to the next point, entitlement. They expect instant gratification and quick fixes instead of working for long-term benefits. If they don't get their desired outcome, they create smear campaigns against you. They would also use gang stalking, right? So what they would do is that they would get their friends or their posse or their colleagues and stuff like that. They will talk smack behind your back, make assumptions of your character, and paint a picture of you which is not entirely true. And once these people start following them, as far as like their flying monkeys go, right, it builds up some sort of repertoire towards and further feeds in their false character, their false narrative. These people will take what you say out of context and intentionally misinterpret the message because what you said, your truth, triggers them. Now, people who facilitate in these kinds of cliquey group settings, multiple people will go at lengths to destroy you and ruin your reputation behind the scenes, including people that you thought you were friends with and you actually trusted. And this would leave true victims feeling isolated and unable to trust anyone, which is a situation that I had to deal with. Because I tried making friends, and even people who aren't even that close to him, right? Even if they aren't necessarily close to Ryo, they exhibit similar traits as him, which made it, very difficult to navigate through. It's like, some sort of sixth form of entertainment and whatnot. Let me see. When I met Don in person, he was going on about being Ryo from Supercell, in his words, a super famous Vocaloid producer, but is under NDA, so he can't tell me who he is. I didn't know why I didn't think anything of it. Again, I'll get more into depth about him in general. My experiences with abusive people of the narcissistic nature is that they often accuse you of the abusive behaviors that they are guilty of themselves. Exactly. It's really like a lot of it is all projection, which is, just very unfortunate. Looking back on it, based on what you said about wanting gratification, made me kind of raise an eyebrow like, The next point that I wanted to talk about was future faking, delusionary thinking. Now, a lot of these people are not grounded in reality. They will gas you up, use your hopes and dreams as a way to take advantage of you. This is something that I fell for as far as my experiences dealing with him because, I'm very passionate and very dedicated to, my stuff. And I thought okay, I had a genuine companion who would want to share that dream with me. And it obviously didn't go through. My original song didn't even I recorded vocals with him and he had plenty of time to finish it. He didn't even get the chance to do so. And I think he was trying to use that as leverage to, not get back at me, but use that as leverage to hold against me. And I am willing to record as many takes as I possibly could. I'm just the type of person where it's okay, if it's not good enough, I'll resend vocals and whatnot. But, it didn't fall through and stuff like that. And I'm planning to, if I were to release it, I'd just put it on SoundCloud at this point. I wouldn't even or I would just either scrap that entirely or make an EP or something like that. I really don't know what I'm gonna do with it at that point, but I intentionally rewrote the song, Better Without You, to Seeking Myself because you know, Better Without You, it wasn't even just pertaining to him at the time, which I didn't want that song to be about him, but it's kind of about him, which was really unfortunate because I thought I was really close friends with him. But Better Without You was about me having the strength to leave an abusive relationship, because I dealt with abusive relationships even before he came into the picture, right? So when it came to Better Without You, I wrote that as a song or a reminder to, you know, empower myself. I'm not the best lyricist, but, you know, it's a first song. What can you do? I rewrote that song with the same melody, but within an alternative instrumental. And I wrote Seeking Myself. And it was another thing that it was another reminder to myself to note that, you know, I'm not alone and that there's other people out there that I can connect with. So, like, Better Without You is more of, like, talking about cutting off toxic ties. Seeking Myself is more about redemption and, like, hope for the future. And that was, like, a way for me to kind of, like, cope or, like, deal with, you know, that not working out for me. So, yeah. Now, keep in mind that, speaking when it came to my original song, these types of people are negligent and irresponsible. So not only do they fail to take accountability for their wrongdoings because they don't want to admit to guilt, but even when someone relies on them for support, they won't follow through. So the times whenever, like, I needed support from him, like, I was always willing to give him support, hands down. But whenever I needed help or when I needed support from him, radio silence, you know? Or he would just, you know, redirect me in other directions and not even, like, talk about, like, the conflict that, like, I couldn't even just sit down and have a rational, like, discussion about, like, hey, we have an issue, can we please solve this? No, it was difficult to do so. At first, we were able to do that, but then later on along the lines, that never happened. Most, if not all, attempts at rectifying the problem are half-hearted, leaving it to be open-ended or one-sided. So closure doesn't exist for these people. It just doesn't. The other party is typically left to clean up after their mess so they don't carry their own weight. These types of people will play victim to escape from their consequences and will make a bad situation worse simply by avoiding, and over time, if not addressed properly, this prolongs the severity of the issue. Lack of introspection. A monumental weakness in the narcissist is the failure to look internally and flesh out what needs to be worked on. Then, of course, the next step is to spend time improving. The narcissist sabotages any possibility of looking deep within, end quote. Again, I quoted that from somewhere. These types of people will refuse to look for solutions and instead either stand idly while damage is being taken place, or they are the perpetrator of said damage. And these people will either consciously or unconsciously commit repeated betrayal just to get by. So these type of people would use words as in, like, I don't want to be betrayed. I want people that are loyal. And they would probably have someone that's right in front of them that, you know, would not betray them and were loyal to them, you know, the whole entire time. But then they would just ruin that. And it's like they want loyalty from you, but then they won't be loyal in return. It's not reciprocal. So, yeah. He loves leading people on by being mysterious and leaking secrets little by little to gain your trust. Future faking sounds like an awful thing with a cool name. You write better lyrics than me. Thank you. Still learning. He produced a song that ended up being about you leaving him. How ironic. Oh, I actually want to listen to that. Maybe that's something that he manifested. How to deal with them, right? Be clear with your boundaries. Reinstate them every time. Oh, sorry. This is in the next section, right? I'm going to talk about how you deal with these types of people and then how you recover from them. And then I'm going to talk about my experiences. And the thing is like, now going back to your point about saying that he produced a song that ended up being about me leaving him. I didn't want to leave him. Deep down inside, I truly didn't want to leave him. I truly unconditionally love, even now to this day, I still love and care about him a lot. Many people will be like, well, Julian, that's kind of, don't you think that's Stockholm syndrome and stuff like that? My unconditional love doesn't mean unconditional tolerance of abuse or bad behavior. I can still love a person from a distance and be like, I love you, but I don't love the shit that you're doing. I don't agree with this fuck shit that you're dealing with, because deep down inside, I want him to get better. I want him to heal. But I'm not going to entertain whatever bullshit games that he's playing and whatnot. I'm not going to sacrifice myself just to appease to someone else, because that's unhealthy. That's toxic. I would ideally want a healthy friendship or a healthy relationship when it comes to anyone in general, where it's reciprocal. People are honest, they commit to one another, and so forth. That's something that I've always wanted from people. I don't think it's that hard to ask for. Unfortunately, I think people just make things more complicated than it has to be, but what is that? No, I'm talking about Better Without You. He produced a song. Oh, I thought you were talking about a new song that he wrote. Oh, okay. I work customer service, and these narcissist qualities sound like the customers I speak. Yeah, because a lot of customers have that customers always right policy. And you know what really sucks about the customers always right policy is the companies that reinforce these policies, because it's like that's what they care about. They don't care about people's genuine well-being in the long term. They only care about profits. And it's another reason as to why I'm really careful before I step into another workplace as far as like retail or fast food goes, because it's just like I don't want to feed into that type of narrative. Like, if I feel like I have to dumb myself down or dim myself down, or just allow myself to be trampled on by other people who are rude and disrespectful and inconsiderate, and I can't even speak up about it, I have to sit and just smile and deal with it. I don't want to do that's incredibly damaging to someone's mental health and someone's stability. Workers, they deserve common courtesy, point blank, and I've always liked to be courteous to the people that are serving me. I love a lot of people who ended up treating me like dog shit or betraying me, so I get you. Yeah. Anyway, going to the next point, how to deal with them, and then how to recover. So starting off, be really clear with your boundaries. Even understand what your boundaries are. Take some time to sit back, reflect, and realize what you can tolerate and what you can't tolerate. Really go down the list of things that you've experienced in your mind. Journaling helps me a lot when it comes to these types of things. And whenever you feel like your boundaries are being breached, reinstate them every single time. Every single time that you feel like they're being breached, reinstate them every time. I know that it's difficult for someone to have the courage to stand up for themselves and say no, but, I say no is a very important thing, and you don't even have to be rude about it. Just be like, no, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to decline. No, I don't agree with that. No, that's unacceptable for me. Just leaving it at that. Just being firm and assertive. Do not be wishy-washy or play nice with them, because these types of people, they will try to flirt and quote-unquote be nice with you. No, don't even entertain a nice conversation with them. The minute that you start feeling uncomfortable, be like, I don't appreciate that. You're making me very uncomfortable. Can you please stop? And just keep repeating that over and over and over again. And just, make sure they adhere to that. If they don't adhere to that, it's not up to you to force it out of them to make them stop. You have to take yourself out of the situation. You have to reparent yourself and take care of yourself the way that a loving parent would, even if you never had loving parents to begin with. Your parent self would have to protect your child's self, and your parent self would step in and be like, okay, I'm going to take Julianne away from this. Let's talk about me. I'm going to take Julianne away from this uncomfortable situation because it's not making me feel at ease. So I'm just going to step out and take a breather. Let them know that you won't engage with them until they know how to be respectful and courteous of your feelings, point blank. So if they're not able to talk to you in a civil manner, don't engage with them. Until they learn how to talk to you in a civilized manner, then okay, then you can talk with them. Understand that respect works both ways. It's not something that you quote unquote command out of other people, and Ryo, would have this thing where he would want respect out of people. And guess what? I unconditionally gave him respect up and down. And I try to follow everything from what he said and whatnot. There are times where I've disagreed with him respectfully, and I said, no, I don't agree with that because I don't think that's a good idea and whatnot. And I told him every single time. I was very straightforward and direct with him every single time when I was dealing with him and talking about my feelings. There are some times where, he also agreed with me, but, again, you cannot command respect out of other people, right? You respect others, they respect you back in return. It's not something that you try to reel out of people or siphon out of people. You're not obligated to owe. Also, you're not obligated to owe these types of people an explanation either, as far as like stating your boundaries. Your boundaries are for you. And if people think like, oh, well, you're coming off selfish. Don't pay mind to people who say that. It's not selfishness. And selfishness is not even a bad thing. Selfishness or selflessness is, again, there's healthy selfishness, unhealthy selfishness, healthy selflessness, and unhealthy selflessness. There's very mix in between and whatnot. But it's more so self-preservation on your behalf. So you are not obligated to owe these types of people an explanation if you're going to, be clear with your boundaries. A simple no is sufficient enough. You don't even need to go in depth about like any type of explanation whatsoever, because over-explaining can also be a trauma response. Like I used to over-explain myself all the time, and I'd be like, okay, let me go through like all these details as to why I did it. Most times than not, they're not going to read through your message. They're not even going to skim through it. If you're typing, and if you're like talking, one ear out the other. Make it straightforward to the point. No, and just leave it at that. Because these types of people, it's like, if they're not going to sit down, be attuned to your emotions and like really feel and like really listen and pay attention, be like, oh, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Okay, I'll take that into consideration. That would be an appropriate response instead of them just like dismissing and then just talking over you and whatnot. Now keep in mind that you have 2 eyes. You got 2 eyes, 2 ears. So this means that you need to observe more, listen more, and talk less when it comes to these types of individuals when you're dealing with them. These people care more about their own agenda than you. So just sit back, grab some popcorn, and let them reveal themselves first. Because more often than not, they will. Most of them really don't know how to shut the fuck up anyway. That was a little rude of me, but it's kind of true. Another way that I would deal with these types of individuals is that I would test them. And I would test them by choosing my questions carefully. And I would ask them specific questions, see the way that they react to said things. Again, not for me to play games with them, but to see how they're going to handle certain types of decisions in that current moment, right? So watch how they handle it. Now, the answer, keep in mind, is not in the words that they say. They can spout words up and down all they want, right? But it's in their actions or lack thereof. Or their contradictions of said things as well. So when you're dealing with these types of things, remain detached and, even like question the friends and the circles that they surround themselves with. More often than not, the friends that they surround themselves with or their circle and whatnot, even their own family, these are the folks that also enable their behavior as well. Next point, let's talk about enabling. Do not enable them. You are not their mother, okay? Don't coddle these people. Simple as that. Even if you're friends with them. Narcissists can be anywhere. Again, check your friend circles, all right? They could be anywhere. You are not their mother. You are not responsible for their own things. There are certain things that you can take care of as far as supporting them and helping them and just be like, I'm here to offer a guiding hand and I'm here to help you, but I am not here to do your work. Your own work is your own work. You have to do that for yourself. And when I'm talking about work, I don't mean physical work. I mean emotional work, inner work within themselves. That's something that they have to deal with on their own. Now, it's one thing when it comes to investigating them. It's another to unveil the truth and allow and continue allowing toxicity to prolong. So let's say that you are not clear whether or not this person is good or not, as far as like, they exhibit narcissistic traits, but I'm not sure whether or not they're like have good intentions or not. So it's okay to sit back and like investigate them and just sit back and like observe and stuff like that. But once you are able to come to a concrete, like you explored all the options in your mind and you really sat through like everything, you analyzed everything up to down, top to bottom, that's what I mean, right? Once you're clear about the truth, you know, the truth has been unveiled to you, it is your responsibility to not allow the toxicity to prolong, you know? So again, being a bystander and just like allowing those things to happen in the first place without taking like any decision, just letting these things run rampant. Again, you can't stop these people, but what you can do is, you know, protect yourself and just equip yourself and make other people aware of said things. That's the most that you can really do as far as these situations go. Another thing is that always keep in mind impact over intentions. It doesn't matter if they had what they deem in their mind good intentions or not. It's the impact of what they've done that matters the most. So you can conjure up many justifications for their behavior and like defend them. I know that you know, there were times where I've defended him because there were instances where I did agree with him and I understood where he was coming from. But then later on, when I started to pay attention to his behavioral patterns and like notice, I'm like, no, this still isn't good. It's not something that I personally condone. I don't really appreciate this behavior coming from this individual. So just understand that harm was still done, which means that you are also responsible for partaking in part of it or not. You know, so don't enable them. Don't fight with these people. I know it's really hard because these types of people will find ways to push your buttons and get you on edge, but just really try to, like, the minute that you start feeling any type of volatile or like hostile like emotions and stuff like that, sit back. Just sit back and just reel yourself in. Try to maintain some level of composure and self-control. The way that I deal with it is, again, I cry. I cry, and I personally, I have no qualms crying in front of people now. Like, I'd rather cry than take my anger out on people, or give yourself a timeout. Don't bother over explaining or repeating yourself if they don't get it the first initial time. So like, if you explained yourself to these types of people over and over and over again, they still don't get it, that's the time where you should just really break it off, because you are wasting a lot of your precious time and energy on people who unfortunately are committed to misunderstanding you. You know, and these people, again, will find excuses to continue painting themselves as a victim. And if you're self-aware that it does not apply to you, don't take their attacks too personally. This most likely has nothing to do with you and more to do with them as far as their projections onto you go. Look at them realistically for what they are in the present moment. I know it's hard because sometimes we have like the sentimental attachment when it comes to these types of people, but don't go on nostalgia trips thinking like, oh, you know, I remember the good times and stuff like that, because those good times were probably not as good as you may think they were. You know, if the instability, the chaos, the drama, and the bad times like outweigh the good and they're more prevalent in your mind. I know it's like difficult because, you know, subconsciously we want to avoid those things because it gives us pain, like remembering them. But I'd say face your triggers, head on, and really don't avert your eyes from the truth. Look at it at present terms, realistically, you know, leave it at that. If it's bad, if it's mostly bad, it's mostly bad. You could still care about these people and the quote-unquote good times that you have, but that's all it is. It's just a fragment. And it's something that you need to keep in mind, that it's like, no one deserves that type of chaos, instability, you know, and abuse coming towards them. No one, you know? Now, keep in mind, you have to refrain from projecting potentiality in the future. Now, they have the potential to get better in the future, but the future isn't now. Now is now. So if they aren't doing shit now, to, you know, rectify their own behaviors, there is no future for them. They're still living in the past. And these types of people will also say like, oh, why can't you move on? Why do you keep bringing up the past? Most often than not, again, they lack self-reflection. So if you were to bring up prior experiences, right, you'd have to question, okay, well, how is your past repeating in your present moment now? What have you done in this moment to rectify said behavior? And again, words are not actions. Actions speak louder than words. Anxiety lives in the past. Sorry, depression lives in the past, but anxiety lives in the future. So always keep in mind, just always stay focused on the present moment and always keep grounding yourself, bring yourself back into the present moment. Respond rather than react. I know this is also a very difficult thing to do because again, they will try to ways to reel reactions out of you. And once they reel the reaction out of you, they'll be like, see, you're the problem because you reacted in da-da-da-da. All right. One method of this, the way that you would have to deal with it is gray rock method. What they would call gray rock method is that you would have to leave things at very shallow, superficial, baseline conversations with them and try to be as stoic as you possibly could. Again, it's very, very difficult for me to remain stoic because I'm a very emotional person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. So, but if you can be able to do that, right? That could be really important as far as surviving these kinds of situations. If the situation gets too heated, give it some time to cook into your brain before you form a proper response back to them. I know again that it's easier said than done, but try your best not to blow up on them and feed into their frenzy. Because attention, whether positive or negative, even if it's negative, is a way for them to fuel their own narrative. So try your best to, again, disengage from doing that. Now, going back to the whole point as like them using reactions as ammunition to promote their agenda and whatnot. I know that Don has tried doing this to me, but I don't care about this as much because I'm mostly confident in myself and like self-assured to the point where this stuff doesn't get to me as much as others do. I mean, like, it still hurts. Let's be frank here. It still hurts. But yeah. Oh yeah. Another thing is be wary of revealing or unmasking these types of people. I know that it's like, I know that sometimes you feel like you've been wronged and you want justice right away. But I am a firm believer in karma, and I believe that justice will happen in due time. But you need to give it time. You need to be patient. So develop a strategic mindset first before you go out and open the floodgates, because these are situations that you have to handle with delicacy and care, and a lot of like thought as well. Also, another thing is that they are their own self-purging machine. So over the years, like they'll eventually tire themselves out. The more that you disengage and you don't respond, you don't react to their behavior, and if you respond in a way where it's like, hey, that like you're coming off too rude, or it's like, just being stoic and whatnot, like, or don't appreciate that or whatnot, like, let them tire themselves out. If they want to blow up, they want to cause like explosions and whatnot, or implosions or what, let them. Don't go into their flames and whatnot. I know that there are instances where I've tried to, because it's like I wanted to be there to comfort them and I wanted to be there to reassure them and stuff like that. No, just don't, and I'm not saying don't even bother with them as in like don't do anything about it. Of course, you should stand your ground and say something about it, but don't get into like any fights or physical altercations with these types of people. That's what I'm saying. It's just like a ticking time bomb. Again, disengage from them, leave them alone. It's not worth it to argue with them if they lack reason or understanding. If they are at a point where they've cooled off and they are able to talk about things rationally, then you can have a conversation with them. But you have to make it clear that it's like, no, when you talk in that manner, and it's stupid because you kind of have to talk to them like a child, but it's like, no, if you're going to talk to me in that manner, I am not going to engage with you. I'm going to engage with you until you're able to talk to me in a respectful, polite, courteous manner. And I don't mean polite as in like, you have to be like, nice or like put on like a front or all that, but just courteous, respectful, compassionate, and empathetic. Even if it's difficult to develop empathic traits, just, having an honest, clear communication is key. You have to make that the main point here. Now, once you're in a safer environment, after you disengage from these people, ground yourself and purge purge whatever you need to, whether that be crying or whether that would be like, you know, deep breathing and whatnot. That's very important. When you detach from these people, if you actually decide to finally cut the ties with these types of people, and again, I understand that when you have trauma bonds with types of people, it's really difficult to detach and cut yourself off from these types of people. You know, try to maintain limited or no contact when you're dealing with these types of individuals. No amount of convincing you do will ever get these people to wake up to themselves. You have to understand that you're not dealing with conscious human beings. You're dealing with zombies through and through. If you do contact them, right? If you have to contact them, like let's say that you have familial ties with them and you have family obligations that you have to adhere to, implement the gray rock method. And when you do have limited conversations, make sure you don't stay too long, and find healthier communication alternatives. One way that also have helped me in this scenario was that I have switched from DMs to email or snail mail. So, I don't like taking instant messages that much because it's very overwhelming. I prefer email more because I can actually take my time reading things and then responding when I feel, mentally ready to do so and whatnot. So that could be something you can implement. You don't have to do that, but yeah. Ooh, let me read all this. Can't help people who don't want to help themselves. Exactly. Basically, some people need the push to do what they want, but it's important that they desire the change in the first place. Exactly. Over time, I've learned to trust my gut. Yeah. Every time I was taken advantage of by someone, there was a part of me that felt uncomfortable and wary of them. I felt mean if I dismissed people from quote unquote just a feeling, but now I understand it's not meant to it's not mean to protect yourself. You don't owe any part of yourself to anyone, even if you think they need you. Realistically, there's nothing you as, oh, you got cut off. There's nothing you, a single person, can do to help them. Yeah, of course. They need to help themselves. It's probably difficult to convince a narcissist that they need to change because if they continue to be rewarded for the for their manipulatives. Better to just not give any time to a narcissist to begin with, in my opinion. Yeah, that is exactly the point. I still bring attention to it because, again, I think it's important for me to be vulnerable and transparent and whatnot. And I'm also the type of person where it's like, if I'm going to like cut things off, I'm going to at least give a proper reason as to why I'm doing so. A stoic Julie. Someone take a picture of this rare creature if it's ever found. For a lot of people, blowing up is about getting the response. It doesn't matter if your response is negative or not. They just want the response. Yup. Something that my dad does to me very frequently. It's heartbreaking, you know, because again, you want to love and you want to connect with these types of people, but it's just incredibly tiring and draining and difficult to do so. So yeah. Now, finally, before I go into my actual experience with him, I'm going to talk about how to recover, right? Now, when you're recovering from dealing with narcissistic abuse or even like bringing awareness to it, the most important thing is to have an honest inner dialogue with yourself, and really take time to sit back with yourself, and practice continual self-compassion and mindfulness. I have like a mindfulness journal that I write in every now and then. I also have like a self-compassion workbook that I also study from, and that also helps me a lot. For me personally, writing and reading things is very therapeutic, and that helps me. When you're doing this, make a continuous conscious effort to heal. I know it's really difficult to like slump back into your comfort zone, get back into your old habits, but you have to keep reassuring to yourself every single day, like, or every single moment that is like, I'm gonna get better, I want to heal, you know, I want to overcome this and whatnot. Because it's stuff like this that can legitimately mess up not only your spiritual health, but also your physical health as well. Healing is not, there's no one size fits all method when it comes to healing. One method that you could use is the 12-step program. There's 12 steps forward and then there's 12 steps back. And usually they use these types of things, these 12-step programs for people who are in rehabilitation, like they take rehab and whatnot. You can just like Google like 12-step program and then you can like read it all there and whatnot. Now for me, I have taken like years of like talk therapy, modern day hospitalization and medication, and they work to like a certain extent, but it didn't really help me. You know, and not everyone does the same thing. I had to turn to spirituality and like holistic healing for me to deal with it, and that's been like a lot more beneficial for me than, you know, I'd say talk therapy or like modern day hospitalization and whatnot. Learn to love and reparent yourself. Be very patient and gentle with yourself. I know it's like frustrating to like, you know, deal with yourself and feel like, why am I not getting there? Like, why am I not healed enough? I can understand how infuriating it feels to feel like you're not getting there, but don't rush your process. It's okay to take your time with it. It's not a race. You're not competing against anyone. When you're dealing with these kinds of things, you will experience extreme highs and lows once you continue to reprocess your experiences. Over time, like it will feel extreme. You will feel like fluctuations of like, you know, manic highs and depressive lows and stuff like that. But over time, I'd say like about a year or two, at least when it comes to me. Other people are different and other people take longer or shorter. Again, it's really entirely dependent on you as an individual. As long as you're making a committed process to healing yourself, you just kind of have to let it ripple out and just ride out the wave as you're dealing with it. When you're dealing with your triggers, you know, when you are triggered in general, subconsciously what this does is attach a narrative or a story to a moment that is unrelated to what is going on. So the best way that you can do is just try to confront your fears head on instead of avoiding them. Avoiding them, you're just suppressing them and just making it more harder for you to get out of that slump in the first place. Use your triggers to your advantage, actually. You can question whenever you do get triggered. Question to yourself, what aspect of this is reflecting back to me that I haven't acknowledged yet? Because triggers are things that you, again, are blind spots. They're things that they need to come to awareness. You need to kind of wake up and like look at it, you know, look at what is being presented to you. Validate, always validate your emotions and your experiences while you're dealing with it. I know it's like tricky because sometimes you feel like guilty and you put yourself on like not gas trips, guilt trips and whatnot. I know that I definitely used to have the tendency to do that, and I would, you know, self-harm in those moments. But you need to validate your emotions and experiences. Do not shame yourself for feeling. The resistance will only exacerbate the pain that you're feeling over time. So allow yourself to feel your uncomfortable emotions without shame, without shaming yourself. You know, just be present with them. Taking deep breaths, learning how to ground yourself in the moment. Ways that I ground myself is that like I feel my body. I try to make sure that I'm in my body. I feel the environment around me. Sometimes I count the lines on the floor. Sometimes I pay attention to the colors, and, you know, I say, like, even games like I Spy with my little eye, something that's red. I look at something, it's red. You know, those things help as far as grounding yourself. Release. Make sure that you release. You can do this through crying. You could do this through screaming. You could do this through journaling and whatnot. It's better to release when you're in a very safe environment rather than like doing it out in the open. I mean, if you do have panic attacks and like meltdowns out in the open, of course, don't shame yourself for going in those bouts as well, because there are times where I definitely had panic attacks like in front of other people, and it does feel very alienating and very embarrassing to deal with. But don't feel ashamed of, you know, the times where you do break down and have those moments. Those are perfectly human. It's perfectly normal. And again, it's okay to feel your way through things. Also, another thing is that, like, children intuitively know how to release and purge their energy. This is why they throw tantrums. Children don't cry and freak out for no reason. More often than not, there's always a reason as to why they're crying and, like, feeling the way that they do. The thing that I've noticed when it comes to parents is that they're pretty dismissive of their children when they're going through shit. I'm like, you should pay attention to that. You should, like, acknowledge that. Why are you letting your child just cry unattended? I think that's a little weird, especially out in the grocery and whatnot. Sorry, that was, like, off topic and whatnot, but yeah. Don't shame yourself for not knowing what you know now. Understand when you're dealing with these types of situations that you used whatever tools that you needed or whatever tools that you had to get up to this point. So be proud that you're here right now, that you've got up to this point, you came to the realizations that you did with the knowledge that you did. It's okay to feel guilt in those moments for not knowing certain things, but don't drive yourself past the point of, like, being on a guilt trip. And when it comes to not only don't shame yourself, but learn how to trust yourself more in those situations. Like, trust yourself first before you trust other people. Because, again, you know yourself better than anyone else. Trauma accumulates in your nervous system. Did you know that? Did you know that trauma, like, accumulates in your nervous system? So if anyone ever comes up to you and say, like, oh, it's all just in your head. No, it's not just all in your head. These are things that happen to you. They affect you physiologically as well. And also, even if it's not just in your head, your brain is attached to the rest of your nervous system, you know? So it's not here. It's all over. It's all stored here, you know? So your nervous system will feel completely shot from the overall exhaustion, not only dealing with these people, but also burning yourself out, reprocessing things all over again when you're dealing with these highs and lows, even if you're by yourself. You know, due to the body's natural defense mechanisms, it will create high amounts of cortisol and adrenaline, which that cortisol and adrenaline is actually things that you need to avoid, because high amounts of it's understandable, because usually in the wild, like, let's say that an antelope was running away from a lion chasing after it, right? The antelope needed that amount of cortisol and adrenaline to run away from the situation and whatnot. But then later on, when they're in safe territory, they need to, like, calm down and everything. That's why, you know, that type of chemical, if it's, like, overproduced over and over and over again, this will not only desensitize your nervous system, but again, will put you into constant shock. You know, when you get into those fight or flight modes, that said adrenaline in your body creates even more tension in your muscles and an increased sensitivity to your pain. Something that helps with this is sweating it out, allowing yourself to, of course, not only purge it out as far as, like, crying and screaming and what have you goes, but sweating it out. Like, go out on walks or, like, runs if you have to just get that stagnated energy, like, moving out of you. And even if it's difficult to move, at least just try to move a little bit. I know there are instances, it's a little bit TMI, I apologize, but I know in these instances, if I get, like, really nervous, like, I have to go pee, like, constantly, you know, don't feel weirded out that you have to, like, go pee constantly if you're, like, really nervous about the, like, you know, feeling all those jitters in your body. Like, allow yourself to release, please, and thank you. Don't, you know, don't allow it to stifle in. Like, your body needs to move it out in, like, one way or another. What you do need, though, is, like, oxytocin. Oxytocin is something that you get when you get hugs from people. I love hugging people. So what you need is oxytocin, and you need, like, endorphins to help decrease muscle tension. You can also do this if you live alone, you don't have people to hug with, and you're like, ew, I don't want to hug people. Hug your teddy bears. I got Build-A-Bears, and I hug them. That helps me. You know, and pairing this up with your grounding method, with grounding techniques and also deep breathing, drinking lots of water helps too. You gotta always drink your water. That also helps as well. You know, and these are, again, all these are chemicals, things that you naturally produce. It's not something where it's like, oh, I just need to go get this over the counter. No, it's already things that you already have within you. Even, like, hugging yourself You know, I like hugging myself a lot, like when I'm in those moments, like, and I like rocking myself, you know, it's soothing to me when I'm in those moments. And if you have to sleep as much as you possibly can. Don't shame yourself for sleeping. If someone's saying like, oh, you're being lazy, no, your body is shot and exhausted from like all the pressure and stress that you're dealing with. Take your rest. Sleep as much as you possibly can. Of course, if you have like obligations that you need to attend to, that's totally fine. But I'd say take things off of your itinerary so you can dedicate more time to healing and taking care of yourself. Because again, these types of situations are very, very traumatizing. And if you go out, let's say for example, right? Let's say that you do Olympics, right? And you broke your ankle. What is the most sensible thing that you do? You wait for your ankle to heal. You don't go out and you do like backflips and routine. No, hell, are you stupid? No, give yourself time for it to heal and whatnot. Another thing that helps is using positive affirmations. I know everyone's like, oh my god, I'm gonna manifest my best reality. Like, no, but like, you know, reclaim your self-worth. Like, meditate, you know, and just reassure yourself that you did not deserve to be abused in the first place. Finally, be autonomous and independent. I know it's difficult because we are an interdependent species and we do need to rely on other people, but sometimes there's going to be situations where it's like, even if you rely on them, like rely on these people, they won't be able to help you in the best way. So like learning how to break free from codependency is difficult, but learn how to enjoy your own company and learn how to be okay with being alone. You know, like rid yourself of like whatever distractions that you need and just discipline yourself in the moment. And do what your body tells you to do. Like if your body feels weak and lethargic, listen to it. Listen to your body. Don't do things that you're tempted to do. Don't fall into that. Just do what your body is intuitively telling you to do. All right? Let me see. I literally feel my anxiety physically in a way that my old therapist didn't seem to understand. That's so strange. About 2 years ago, the time that I was dealing with my abusive ex-boyfriend that sexually assaulted me, I developed a movement disorder, and I was barely able to walk for several months. Huge eye-opener. Jeez. Sorry, just heavy just reading that. I thought that I was dying or had a horrible disease, but the doctor said it was a complicated reaction from stress or trauma. I always used to try to just quote-unquote deal with things, but now I know how serious it is beyond just emotional well-being to let stress pile up. Oh my god, yeah. Like there are also moments where it's like if I've dealt like from betrayal, if I've experienced betrayal trauma from like people and whatnot, that is also like I felt like that's really like I feel like what you're explaining to me is very parallel to my situation with Don. Where that has also happened to me, where I'm like, you know what, I'm done with this situation. I'm just gonna move on. I'm just gonna move on. Like you can't just move on entirely. Like, you know, and sometimes I'm even like thinking like it's done and over with. I'm already done with this individual, but you can't because sometimes the trauma is just always gonna stay there. And sometimes it's just going to stay in your head rent free. You're just going to have to integrate what you've learned from those experiences and like, unfortunately live with it for the rest of your life. You know, that's why it's really important to be okay with your own company and be okay with like being your own friend, you know, just learn from those past experiences and try to, move forward with it. Now I'd say finally, when it comes to this topic in general, when it comes to this part in general, while you're not obligated to quote unquote forgive these people, try your best not to hold resentment towards them. I know this was like difficult for me to do. And usually I'm actually a very forgiving person. I usually don't hold resentment towards people that much, really. There are times where I had like arguments with my friends and then like I just went back and I'm just like, you know, I'm done. That was like really stupid. I hope we're able to you know, go back to the way that things were. And usually we were able to like resolve things in a healthy manner and whatnot. So yeah, again, I'm the type of person where it's like, I'm able to, you know, like, I used to be able to forgive easily. I think I've gotten to the point where I think after my experience, it was really hard for me because, like, you know, I wanted to cling on to that resentment so much. And I've never felt that way before. You know, I wanted to cling on to that resentment so much because I wanted to remind myself that it's like, I'd be telling myself in my head, I'd be fucking damned if I dealt with anyone, if I dealt with the same fucking situation over and over and over again. You know, but holding on to resentment doesn't leave space for you to open up better things for you in the future. So, don't allow it to kill your spirit. You can only become bitter for so long that it starts hating you, and then you start exhibiting, unfortunately, like similar traits and patterns of the people that have wronged you. So always check yourself, check your friend circles, and yes, even long-term relationships that you built over time, check them too. Check. Keep in mind that trust is something that needs to be earned, and built over time. It's not something that you easily should hand out right away. I know that I've made a mistake of like taking like huge leaps of faith into like situations, because again, I'm just a very passionate person. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and when I dedicate myself into something, I put my like 110% into like everything of it. So now I know to be a little bit more sensible, a lot more sensible, and not, you know, just, you know, build trust over time. It's better to frame yourself in the mindset that these individuals are trapped in perpetual bondage. They're lost and they need deliverance. Simple as that. Like, if you are aware and you're taking steps to heal, you should consider yourself blessed. All right. I know that Mocha wrote before when it came to him saying like, oh, he needs to burn in hell and whatnot. The thing is that Ryo, he was already in hell, you know? So like wishing that, you know, it's like stating the obvious, you know, like he's already trapped in his own hell from the own things that he's dealt. Like, well, narcissists in general, they're trapped in their own, like I said, perpetual bondage. They have to be the ones to break themselves out of it. You know, and, you know, now this point in general, like really keep this in mind. And this is something that I get into like spirals and like traps just dealing with, that I have to just keep in mind that healing is a never ending process. It's not like, okay, I'm healed with it, I'm done. No. You're always healing. You're always healing. So don't ever be frustrated feeling like, oh, I'm not there yet. All right, because the more that you focus on like the destination, instead of focusing on the overall journey, you're losing sight of, you know, the present that is being given to you. What is the present that's being given to you? The present moment. That's your present. You're here now, and you're okay with being here now. Just always keep that in mind. Just bring it back to now. Every single time your ego starts flaring up, bring it back to now. Bring it back to now. Bring it back to now. You're here now. Right now. So don't worry about like, oh, well, you know, if I get to this point, then I'll be happy. No. Just be okay with where you're at right now. You're here because you're here. I don't know if that doesn't even make sense. Whatever. Now some heal faster than others. Some heal slower than others. It's okay if, you know, I'd say like for me, I'm a fast learner. So I consciously and intentionally pushed myself to heal. So I've been doing this for about like over a year or so, because around 2019 was like where all the shit has like accumulated and built it up. So, you know, that's where I'm at. I think that people that grew up in traumatic situations, we tend to quote unquote forgive people that don't deserve. Oh yeah, definitely. When you're a child and you cannot escape from abuse, if you do not let go of that pain in some way, your body can't handle it. So we learn to just forgive people and try to let it go, because it's easier than holding on to so much anger every day. Forgiveness is important, but I think it can easily turn into a maladaptive habit or just dismissing our own experiences. Yeah, I also think that people confuse, this is something that I said before and I'll say again, I also think that people confuse forgiveness and trust. There's a difference. Forgiveness means that you're letting go of the things that have happened in the past to you. Trust means that you're opening up the door for allowing someone into your life and bringing something new in. You know, you can forgive people, but you don't have to necessarily trust them. you know? And forgiveness is not something that you give to someone else. It's something that you give to yourself. So always keep that in mind. Forgive yourself first before you forgive another person. And the reason why I say forgive yourself first is forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know. Forgive yourself for putting yourself in that situation. Forgive yourself for, you know, not being able to be in control of things. Because there's simply things that in our life that we simply just can't control. Let me see. The boyfriend I mentioned would often tease me or say that it's cute how I have a habit of saying it's okay in a defeated sort of way when people wrong me. That's upsetting. I need to get better at saying that it's not okay. I see what you mean. I don't know. I don't know. Now, you know, this has taken me a while, but I finally, after going through all of that, I have finally gotten to the point where I am now going to actually expose Ryo or Don, my experiences and what I've dealt with him, right? This is my personal truth on the matter and what has transpired. So thank you so far for staying with me this long while I'm telling you about you know, the what I've learned from my experience. And now I'm actually going to talk about my experience. Now, I'll hit this guy too if it comes up. Please don't. Please don't. Just please don't. I really actually, I don't even want to entertain that idea. All right. I just don't. I'm sorry I keep making depressing comments, but the topic just promotes this kind of... No. I encourage it. You are free. I like to think that this is a safe space to share your experiences. You're free to tell your experience, to open up about your feelings and stuff like that. I'm okay with, you know, allowing myself to feel sad as well and empathizing through other people. That's the way that I connect with one another. And I hope that it also reassures you having that similar connection so you don't feel as alone dealing with these kinds of scenarios and whatnot. You don't have to be sorry for feeling safe to open up. Yeah, exactly. I won't actually hit anyone. Okay. Maybe you could do so in the astral realm, but don't do it physically. I'm just keeping my third eye on you. So, oh my god, these fucking fireworks. I'm sorry, there are fireworks that are going on outside and it triggers me. And I just don't like fireworks. Shut up. Why are you doing it's not even 4th of July, dumbass. It's not even 4th of July. Shut up. Do you hear it? Whatever, it's so fucking stupid. Anyway. All right. Here we go. So, my personal truth. Ryo, or Ryo Supercell, he goes by Don Nguyen. Alright? Now, people are saying, like, well, that's weird. Ryo Supercell, like, he's Japanese. Why does he have a Vietnamese name? It's because he's half Japanese and, like, half Vietnamese. Now, since he broke his promises, I will break my NDA with him. What? Julian, you signed an NDA with him? Yeah, I signed an NDA with him. The reason as to why I signed an NDA with him, I was actually the one who proposed to sign an NDA with him because he came up to me initially telling me about his grievances or his troubles with other people. And because he had a hard time trusting other people, I'm like, well, you know what? And you can even see it in screenshots too. I told him, let me sign a contract. I'm that serious about this. You know, that was... of course, that was silly on my behalf, but, you know, I had, like, this intuitive knowing or this inner calling to kind of just go through the fucking hellish nightmare that I've been through and whatnot. But I told him, okay, you don't trust me? I'll sign a contract and I'll follow everything through it, you know? And guess what? I did follow the NDA completely, thoroughly. And the NDA, by the way, he said, oh, no, the NDA is for... No, it's not. Dumbass. If you actually read the NDA that I wrote. Also, it's not even an NDA. It's a contract with an NDA clause. All right? I know how to read. It also said that I think around November 9th or November 19th. I don't remember the date, but I know it was November something 2020 was when my NDA wasn't applicable anymore. So I have leeway to discuss everything that I'm saying and whatnot. And also, by the way, I made him sign this card right here where it says, I promise not to bully, right? I told him to write blank. He wrote his name. And I know this is like a joke and whatnot. It comes off like a joke, but he made me sign a contract. I made him sign a contract, right? It's supposed to say, I, Ryo, pledge not to bully. I will not bully others. I will not leave anyone out. I will help others being bullied. If I cannot stop a bully, I will tell an adult. I care. I can help. I can make a change. I will stand up for what is right. The end of bullying will begin with me. And then, I wrote the date. And then I wrote the school here and I wrote down fucking common sense. So even if it was a meme, I still took that seriously because this is my contract. So you broke my contract, I'm breaking yours, dumbass. Anyway, can I control him? No. Most I could do was warn him. And I've warned him multiple times. Did he listen? Obviously not. Because he bullied other people. You're gonna get the no-no. You're gonna get the naughty-naughty. Because you were not being good. You are not being a good bean. Anyway, so keep in mind, as me joking about this to kind of cope with like the pain and everything, there was an occasion where I was very, very close to reporting him to the police. I shit you not. I was very, very close to reporting him to the police because of the complications that I was like dealing with. I also did my best to mitigate drama, and I told him several times, stay in your own lane. Why? Because I was actually trying to protect him, right? I told him to stay in his own lane because I'm like, if you get further involved with these types of people, it's not going to be good on you. You stay in your own lane. You focus on your own career. I focus on my own stuff. Stay in your lane. All right? Obviously, he didn't do that. But yeah, whatever. So at this point, he cannot sit here and feign ignorance and chalk it up to him making mistakes because it's not a mistake anymore. This has been a continual conscious decision on his behalf, and there are times where, again, he has tried to pull the victim card. No, you're not a victim anymore. You're not a victim dealing with these circumstances. You probably were a victim before when you're dealing with them, and I empathized with you during those, and I know you're watching this too. I empathized with you during those moments. You're not a victim. All right? He tried to threaten me with legal action, and he said like that he was going to sue me. He was threatening to sue me. And I knew at the time I knew it was fear-mongering, and I was crying because I was empathizing with him, and I told him like, if you have to bring me to court, by all means, do so. I'm not even kidding. Why? Because deep down I knew that I actually didn't break anything in the NDA, and I didn't even do anything wrong, because in the NDA there was something that said along the lines, don't spread false rumors. Everything that I said was the truth. Not only everything that I said was the truth dealing with the situation that I dealt with, but, I tried to make sure that I kept in adherence with the rules and whatnot. Now, a lot of this, in fact, all of this could have been resolved if he stopped lying and he actually faced himself. But I had to bottle up this information for so long. In addition, if you have ever dealt with him, while I encourage you to talk about your experiences, please do not come up to me and express your hatred towards him or be like, ew, this person's a creep, da-da-da. Because when people come up to me and say that, it actually doesn't make me feel good. Like, I understand that he's done things that have wronged me and have hurt me. But at the same time, I'm also not okay with people being just as toxic in retaliation, because it's like, how does that help anything? That's very immature to do that. So just don't. And also, I'm not going to trust you, because some people will kind of, I know that there were certain experiences where I've dealt with people who wronged me, and they try to get on my good side, be like, oh my God, Julian, I'm so sorry. That person was an asshole. I'm so sorry and I'm like, I don't need your fucking pity. I don't need your pity. And it's like, it's not me saying like, I don't need your pity in the way where I don't need you to empathize with me. I don't need you to try to do that to try to get on my quote unquote good side, because there are people who do that, try to get my good side. I'm like, no, I'm not falling for that. So I don't need your pity. He doesn't need your pity. And I'd rather that people just wish for him to heal and get better. Simple as that. I know it's very difficult to do so considering the amount of damage that he's done. But I think to just keep things good, just encourage him to go to rehab or something. Just, I don't know, get some help. Stop it. Get some help. You know what I'm saying? So let's just keep everything respectful, shall we? Yeah? Yeah. All right. So, sorry about that other disclaimer. Now, before AmbiFlora, my previous idol group, came into fruition, there are roleplay groups that, and this is like from the very beginning when I first started associating with him and whatnot, there are roleplay groups, net idol groups that were like called Prismatic, Solar Beats, and like Starstruck. I don't, like, even now to this day, I still don't know like the exact like extent of like these types of groups, because it's like, A, they didn't really do much, and then B, they weren't even that serious when it came to their own overseas idol activities. And again, a lot of them were like role players or like cosplayers. They didn't do this stuff with with the intent of like taking it professional and stuff like that. I mean, literally there were instances where they had fan fictions and they were like talking about like their idol fan fictions and stuff like that. I'm sorry, the minute that you have a fan fiction, I can't take you seriously. Now, me, trying to put two and two together, as far as the folks that try to tear me down behind the scenes and like on the 4chan boards, are most likely similar folks from the cosplay community residing in the DMV area. DMV area meaning, what is that? Virginia area? Virginia, DC, and Maryland. So in that area. Now, I do not have evidence, but I suspect that Jenny Bond and Barry are part of these cliques. If you don't know them, they were like members of the group Starstruck and whatnot. This was like the idol group that they formed in and whatnot. And there were many more girls involved in these roleplay, cosplay idol groups. I do not have concrete names, and I can only assume that these are the list of people that tried to report Ryo from like any party. If you listen to my last live stream, it was stated I stated before that there were like about 10 plus people that reported Ryo to like any party and whatnot. For context, any party is an event organization that works to like spread Akiba K or like any culture to the US and whatnot. And they put him on a blacklist because of their own experiences with him and stuff like that. And I had to mitigate that, like the drama between that during the performance. Like it was a headache. It was a nightmare to deal with. They said before on the 4chan boards that they were going to come out with their stories pertaining to him. But as far as my knowledge goes, they actually deleted their Discord servers that they were involved in. So I'm like, why would you delete evidence? That's strange. And during the times that I actually came to Don's house to complete work with him, he actually trusted me enough to go on his computer and go through his Discord messages pertaining to these girls and stuff like that. And there weren't many like text messages, but I'm assuming that there was more voice messages between these types of girls. And these girls did warn me about him, but the way that they approached it was also toxic. You know, they could have handled it in a more mature manner, because I understood their concerns, but the most that I said was, I'll take what you said into consideration, you know, because I wanted to explore things for myself. Now, keep in mind that these cosplayers also don't know him to the same extent that I do. Like, I know him on a much deeper level than these cosplayers ever do, because we lived in the same hometown and whatnot. So a lot of them are like very much gossipers. Now, I intentionally chose to investigate him on my own accord. I was not manipulated or controlled to do so. I just had an innate calling. I kind of followed it, and I just left it at that. My motive, as far as me getting involved with him in the first place, well, not only to work with him and collaborate with him, but as the former leader of Overseas Idol Collection, I was thinking, okay, if this guy is actually a creep, again, let me investigate this for myself, right? I felt that I was obligated to understand all sides of the story before believing in rumors, because I'm just that type of person. I'm not gonna fall. I like to exhibit a healthy dose of skepticism when it comes to these kinds of things. And during those moments, I was like thinking, okay, if he was indeed as bad as they say he is, then I would keep note of that and keep note of that. And I would also keep note of them as well. In addition to my motive, again, I had like this gut feeling that I couldn't really control. It's just like my gut kept insisting me to nudge towards this particular individual and whatnot. So now in the midst of me like investigating Ryo and me dealing with him beforehand, I also investigated, I wouldn't say investigated, but looked into the people involved in AmbiFlora to see whether or not they were the right fit for me as a group and whatnot. I warned my members ahead of time, like before I even created my previous idol group that, is now disbanded. I warned them ahead of time saying that me creating another idol group is a liability on me. Like, it's going to look bad if it collapsed, because I was already a pretty quote unquote established soloist, and I was maintaining on sticking to my soloist thing. The only reason why AmbiFlora came to fruition in the first place was because Ryo encouraged me to do so, because he told me, well, wasn't it your dream to create an idol group? And I'm like, yeah, it was. But intuitively, I knew that was I knew it was the wrong path. But at the same time, I did have dreams of sharing my idol endeavors with someone else. I didn't like doing it by myself. So yeah, why did I create another group? It wasn't to spite the previous groups that I used to be in. Again, he encouraged me to make one, and I was very hesitant of doing so in the first place. The underlying symptom of all of that as well was that I always had struggles like fitting in with people and finding close-knit friends that matched my energy. And it wasn't that I was like keen on like making like friends first, sort of say, because my idea of friendship is very different from other people, but it's like at least civil business relationships with other people, some people have that mindset. Most people just do not, especially if you're dealing with amateurs. Like, most people do not have that, like, oh, I'm going to look at you like a coworker, because that's kind of how I looked at AmbiFlora in general. I kind of looked at Ryo as a coworker too, but not really as much. I looked at him more like a closer friend than a coworker. But the rest of these individuals, I did look at them more as coworkers instead of friends. Ideally, I did want to be friends with them later on as time gets along, because it's like, I don't want to be like a stick in the mud. I did want to create like healthy relations and stuff like that. But I came to terms that I can't be like friends with these types of people. Now, when it comes to these particular cosplayers in general, these are the types of women. Now, again, I'm not lumping like all of them in general, but these particular cosplayers in the DMV area that were in these roleplay groups, they have like misandrous traits to them. And they would be the types of people that would like lump all men together as the enemy. And I'm just not the type of person that subscribes to that. So that was a red flag when it came to those types of people. And it was another reason as to why I was like skeptical of what they were telling me, because this was like a whole he said, she said game that was being flinged back and forth, right? So like from the beginning, I already didn't have like good vibes coming from these individuals. And I actually agreed with, at the time back then, I actually agreed with Ryo more, because there were a lot of like principles, at least I thought at the time, that we aligned with and whatnot. Now, I also overheard these cosplayers were humiliating him and calling him like bad names, and I don't like that at all either. It's like, it's one thing where it's like you're calling out an abuser, but then you're also being abusive behind the scenes. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's really hypocritical of you to say. Like, it's kind of like the saying where it's like, if you point one finger, three fingers are pointing back at you. You know, I personally felt really disgusted. Like, as much as I'm disgusted by the way that he's treated me and he's treated other people, I'm also just as equally disgusted as the way that they treated him and the things that they said about him. Like, I empathized with all of it, and I can understand how horrible it is for people to say those types of names to other people. There are ways where you can, deal with abusive people and not be abusive yourself, or not be toxic yourself coming to that, because it doesn't make you any better. He has also tried to work with these types of individuals in the past, but they are, like I said, they're not serious about their work. And they even hesitated to provide him, like, with substantial, like, or any vocal progress whatsoever. That much, like, I can very much attest to. Now, as far as some of the members of AmbiFlora, I know I spoke about, if you want more context, you can check my previous live stream where I was talking about understanding healthy versus unhealthy group dynamics. I go more in depth about my story with AmbiFlora, but basically, while Tama, Cece, and Sammy, former members of my group, were not entirely liable for what has transpired, I do think they deserve some blame for siding with these types of cosplayers and whatnot. I blame more so the older cosplayers that they surround themselves with, because they have a poor influence on them. Those three individuals that I've worked with in AmbiFlora, right? And I worked with Thomas, Cece, and Sammy because Ryo recommended me to them. I trusted his word, because I trusted his word. I'm like thinking, okay, let me try it for myself, and let me give them the benefit. Like, I was literally, my whole entire mindset is like, let me give these people the benefit of the doubt, and then obviously we're here and whatnot. Another thing that I wanted to add, I think I already said this before, but again, I'll say it again for the sake of context, is that although Tama broke the rules by not keeping things confidential in the contract that she signed, it started out as her confiding in one or two people, and then afterwards, these types of people are gossipers. They will spread these things out in flames instead of, again, handling a situation with tact in an appropriate manner, maturely. You can't rationalize with those types of people either. Why did it blow up the way that it did? I was thrown into a game of, like, constant he said, she said. Almost all parties involved lacked healthy conflict resolution skills. And I know that I'm not the best, and I'm still learning from these kinds of things, but I like to think, or be self-aware enough to the point where I know that I've given my best effort as far as trying to deal with all the chaos and drama and try to just, like, organize everything. And this type of drama was something that I have never dealt with this type of drama ever before in my life. I mean, like, I have in the past, but I wasn't, like intuitively, I knew how to steer clear from these types of people, right? I kind of denied my gut just to give people the benefit of the chance. And the fact that I was, like, thrown into the thick of, like, all of it, like, intuitively, I knew it was bad news, but I didn't know that it was going to be as bad as it really was. And that really screwed me over. So yeah, those girls acted like they just wanted to warn people about Ryo, but somehow they always find a reason to criticize Julian in association with him. Reeks of vendetta. That's exactly the point. I think they first started accusing me, right, of being, like, certain types of things that meanwhile, these people have never talked to me. And if they did talk to me, it was only small, brief interactions with me. They don't sit back and, like, actually take the time to really get to know me as a human being. So when they were on these boards, like, throwing vendetta at me, it was horrific. Now, I can understand if they had issues with Ryo, right? That, okay, I can understand. But as far as me and as far as I go, right, I'm, like, thinking, I'm trying to deal with this in the best way that I know possible, and you doing that doesn't help anything. A lot of these hive mind people, or these people who work in cliques, they find strength in numbers. It's a way that they feed off of each other. It's just dumb overall, because, again, a lot of the stuff could have been handled if they, like, talked to me directly, but they didn't even take the chance to only one of them did. they did talk with me directly. And even with that being said, me talking to them directly, when they were warning me about certain things about him, right? When I was talking to them, I asked them about, I asked them to give me like clarification on their experiences, and they came off a bit defensive actually when they were telling me about it. They actually told me a lot of things that I already knew just by me talking to Ryo, like on personal terms. I just wanted to see if they had any further elaboration and whatnot. And the only thing that I said to them, was, I tried to keep it as neutral as possible. Not being neutral as in like, oh yeah, I'm like playing the fence, but I don't have enough information to make a concrete decision. And I'm just the type of person where it's like, I'm not going to make rash decisions until I weigh out all the particulars first, right? So when they gave me the information, what they know in their own testimony, all I said is, thank you for letting me know. I'll definitely take that into consideration. There are also instances where I tried questioning them further and I tried prying for more information, but they got triggered and they said like, oh, that's like, they would say, oh, that's really mean of you to ask about like something that is like so emotionally triggering to other people. And I'm like, okay, I understand that, people are not valid. People are not valid. People are not obligated to dispel their traumas and like tell it to other people, especially a stranger for that behalf. That's totally fine, right? But if you're really trying to convince me of like a solid point of like, whatnot, I'm going to ask for as much information as possible so I can like really ensure that I'm making the best decision, so again, it's just like, and even that, like, just if you really think about it logically, right? Even if they had issues with Ryo themselves and stuff like that, did you really think that taking it to the boards was necessary? If you were to make a call out post and whatnot, that's fine. They can do that. But they didn't even get the chance to do that because, like I said, they deleted the Discord servers that they were in. It was like, how are you deleting evidence of, it's ridiculous. So now, pertaining to the actual rumors of me sleeping with him, I can confirm that this is indeed true. Now, in my previous stream, I didn't say whether or not it was true or not. I was just trying to put the thing out there to try to, what is that? I was trying to put the statement out there as far as like, it's not the fact that people have accused me of sleeping with him on the boards, right? Because they didn't have proof of this, by the way. They didn't have proof of this. And nor did I never even told anyone about any of that. So there would be no way that they would have that type of information, right? So, while it was true, keep in mind that the girls on the boards accused me with no evidence. And it's not about whether or not it was true or not, but it was about their motive and their intention to sully my name, all right? We have to also keep into perspective that these are privileged white folk who have things easily handed to them, and they share a similar type of entitled mindset. Like, these people are also bored with their lives, and they like to, create drama and stuff like that. So, now, I have always felt guilty for doing this because, he had a significant other and stuff like that. And I'm not going to go into depth out of respect for her and whatnot. Like, I've always felt guilty about it because I was kind of in a situation where it was like instantly love at first sight. Because he was the catalyst to my spiritual awakening and stuff like that, I couldn't control or help the feelings that I was feeling towards him. So, it's a controversial thing in Asia for idols to not only be in love, but also have that kind of relationship with their producer. And even though I am not actually a Japanese pop idol and I'm an overseas idol, I still try to maintain that disposition, because typically dating is prohibited because the idol is meant to focus on, being unconditionally loving to the rest of their fans. Like, I was only focused, or was really trying to focus solely on getting my work done and whatnot. And initially I tried to strive for that, but keeping up the act was really, really difficult. Also, with my own personal qualms with like intimacy and stuff like that, I have major fears of intimacy. I never This has always been like a repeat history of me whenever I had crushes on people. Like, I'm just the type of person where I never liked, quote unquote, being in love with people because it makes me feel completely out of control, out of my element. It's a very vulnerable feeling, and I feel awful whenever I'm in love. I actually really don't like romance either. It's like, it's difficult because it's like, I'm the type of person where it's like, I want romance and I want to be loved, but then on the other hand, it's like, I already know what's going to happen if I go down that rabbit hole, and I don't want to deal with it. So, you know, I was really, really trying my best to detach, by, you know, drawing all these lines in my mind pertaining to him, but I simply couldn't like help it. Like, it was just things that, again, that were like completely out of control. I also wanted to really really solidify that I was not with him because I wanted to take advantage of him because he was a music producer or use him for my own gain. I actually genuinely had feelings for him. Like, I actually deeply cared about him on a soul level. Like, I truly cared about him, his own well-being, and everything in between. Even if he wasn't the best music producer, even if he wasn't like a musician in general, I literally couldn't care less about like any of that. So I don't want people to think that, you know, oh, I'm in it just because like I'm just trying to like get opportunities and stuff like that. No, that was always never the case whatsoever. So yeah. Anyway, to the whole backstory, with his environment, these are things that I've learned as far as my experiences dealing with him. When I was trying to get to know him and understand him, and his living situation, it's very stifling and unstable for an individual like him, given his unique circumstances and his character traits. You know, he has told me that that there were instances where he would hop from one place to the next, to the next, to the next. And when he told me that, it automatically clicked in my mind. It's like, oh, you never even had a chance, even in your own childhood growing up, where you were able to settle down and actually be at peace. Like, chaos was your norm. So being at peace was very, very foreign for an individual like him. His environment is also like a byproduct of the traumatic upbringing that he was dealt with. And also, not to mention the society that reinforces toxic masculinity. This toxic masculinity can come from competition, aggression, being domineering, violence, sexual coercion, etc., etc. There be times where he told me that he would dealt with corporal punishment from his own family, and I deeply felt him when it came to that. I resonated with him on that because I've also dealt with corporal punishment as well. Like, corporal punishment was like a norm for him, and whatnot. So imagine, like, you know, being in that kind of upbringing and then having that instilled into your mind and whatnot. It's you know, it can really shape you into being a specific type of person and whatnot. Another thing that I want to point is that it's not masculinity that's the problem. You know, we need masculinity. It's toxic masculinity that's the issue. You know? So, my next point, finally, men are not the enemy, all right? I have to make this point again. I don't want people to come here and be like, oh, I hate all men, da-da-da. I understand, as a woman, I understand and I empathize, you know, because I've been betrayed and hurt by men too, right? But at the same time, I don't condone sexism, so don't bring that here. Please and thank you. Anyway, so entrapment, right? A lot of his money goes to his family, his friends, and his significant others or whoever, and that take advantage of him, right? People repeatedly exploited him, and he learned to imitate that behavior by exploiting other people. So keep in mind that this isn't something that it's like, of course this is something that is like learned behavior. It's something that if he does so choose to do so, he has to unlearn that. He has to learn how to not do that towards other people and play these tit for tat games. You know, a lot of people, many people demand attention from him on a constant basis, or he creates scenarios where he creates scenarios where he wants other people to demand attention from him because it makes him feel needed And keep in mind, when it comes to people who exhibit narcissistic traits, they equate attention with love, right? He doesn't know how to pick his priorities and cut off toxic people. And he just doesn't know how to say no. Because he doesn't know how to say no to them, because he's trying to be nice, or trying to, have this false image, or have this image presented to other people, he allowed not only the wrong people to influence him, but also taint him to a certain extent. All right. These are the folk that are in his arena. Now, I don't know everyone. As far as like his connections and stuff like that, I don't know them to the full extent. But the only thing that I know, as far as my experiences go, is that because I used to live upstate New York, I think I have a pretty good idea of like how these individuals are, and whatnot, so I can only be led to assume that these folk in his arena like enable his stupid behavior because, they get away with it. Well, he gets away with it because I would say they might be just as narcissistic as him. Quite possibly. Now, due to small town syndrome, right? I typically avoid such fake people like that because a lot of people in like these small towns, they it's like everyone knows each other. Everyone is like in each other's pants. It's like this whole merry-go-round of like drama and stuff like that. That's kind of like the unfortunate circumstance when it does come to small towns and stuff like that. So typically I avoid fake people like that. And if I ever do associate with them, I'm most likely like studying them. And I'm usually like that with a lot of people in general, where I just like sit back and I study a lot of people. It's why I'm very selective with my company, and I keep my inner circle small, despite, me being popular with like other people and whatnot. I can also be led to assume that these people, including his coworkers, will mock him for not conforming to the norm and talk badly behind his back. I think a lot of these people don't even care about the real him. And this is something that I already told him before, and he got really triggered when I say this, but I really hold firm to this belief that they only care about the music that he provides to them. I don't think they actually really care, or not even the music that he provides for them, but also the favors that he gives to like all these other people, right? And getting him involved in hedonistic pleasures, or like getting him involved in like all of these things to not only, maintain this false image of himself, but also come off that, he's connecting with other people and he's like socializing with other people, and he just keeps spreading himself incredibly thin, Now, so with all of that being said, while he is responsible for his own wrongdoings, understand that this isn't a situation that he entirely created on his own. So there are a lot of things that he's at fault on. But there's a lot of things that are also things that I don't know of, things that are not revealed yet as far as the truth goes. So it's not as simple as him entirely doing it to himself. This is, again, a byproduct of the environment that he is also in, right? Why? Because you would think that people who would be around him, be close to him, they would know and understand that if they knew and they understand the way that he is, I don't think, especially if you're being that close to someone, why would you allow it to escalate it to the point? Why would you allow it to escalate to that point? And why did you not intervene in a way that is more beneficial to their health? Right? I understand that there are certain things that cannot be controlled and whatnot, but in a certain way, it did influence him to go down that wrong path. And this is something that, again, he has chose on his own free will and his own volition. They allowed the abuse to happen to him because thus said abuse transferred onto other people. Again, it's like a whole cesspool of fuckery in general. But overall, he can blame external circumstances all that he wants. But the main issue here is that he allowed this to go on for himself for a very long time, and even continually actively engages in said behavior. Therefore, he's working against himself when it comes to dealing with his own inner work. In addition to that, he also, like I said, before, these types of people perpetuate a vicious cycle, but he also in particular perpetuates a vicious cycle of self-sabotage and destruction, and whatnot. So, quote, the music he provides for people, but has he actually ever provided anything to everyone? I never saw anything. I'm talking more so in his work setting. I'm not talking about like when he was dealing with amateur performers. The performers, the only thing that I can be led to assume is just more for like a side thing to him, you know? And I think more so it's a side thing to him because it's not something that is like giving him like actively giving him money and whatnot, you know? So again, these are things that like could be wrong or right, but these are just things that are just based off of my interpretation of my understanding of him, right? He placates to, from what I see, like a lot of like quote unquote friends that feed his ego. And if I were to notice these behavioral patterns, like I would tell him like directly and whatnot. A lot of people, I wouldn't say like some people would tell him directly. Other times, like, you know, they would just, you know, not pay that much mind to him and whatnot. And he either, now I don't know if he knowingly or unknowingly does this, but he caters to a lot of yes men and flying monkeys on a consistent basis. Like, as long as it feeds his ego, as long as it feeds his false narrative, that's all that's all that matters to him, you know? It's another reason as to why he said in the screenshots that he was like terrified of like being betrayed and whatnot. So it's but for him, you know, which is, I'm not justifying his behavior, he thinks that it's safer to hurt others first before they do it to him. As an example, it's one of the reasons as to why he would like constantly like test me like over and over and over again. Point blank though, real friends are going to hold you accountable no matter how much the truth hurts. You know? And the thing is that because he's non-committal, he doesn't know how to make choices for himself, and he doesn't know how to say no, and he doesn't know how to pick his priorities, and he only cared about, you know, maintaining like a false image and whatnot. In turn, that created indecisiveness and stagnant, like him being stagnant on his behalf, you know? So by being indecisive and not being honest and not being truthful, you automatically chose the adversary. You automatically worked against yourself, or you worked against people who were trying to care for you and support you and whatnot. You know? I bet he's getting his rocks off right now that people are publicly saying that he thinks he's Ryo Supercell. I'm sorry, but he isn't. I'll get to that in just a moment. Now, let me see. Performative behaviors, right? The only way that he was able to fit in was, you know, by wearing a mask. You know, he wanted to put on a show for everyone instead of learning how to take care of himself. Like, he doesn't know how to take care of himself, period. Like, really poor, just like poor self-caring skills and stuff like that. Because, again, he spreads himself, like, he's a workaholic, you know? So, because he deals with workaholism and then he spreads himself too thin, he gives himself out to, like, a lot of people, right? He wastes an incredible amount of time, I'd say, as far as me working with him, and as far as other idols that were working with him, or I would say other amateur idols that were working with him, wasted an incredible amount of time, like, you know, when it comes to being focused on tasks and whatnot. Like, in my experience, I felt like I was not only, like I had to deal with, not only with him, but I also had to deal with the AmbiFlora. I had to deal with my own personal baggage. I had to deal with my family. I had to deal with, like, overseas idol collection. Like, imagine dealing, like, all of that all at once. And I was still trying to take care of myself in the midst of all of that, you know? So, it was just very burdensome to carry and whatnot. Excessive flirting. You know, he would only maintain shallow and superficial connections since it's easier to control. And maybe he likes doing it because he likes associating himself with cute young girls. I don't know. Most likely that's probably the case. I warned him several times not to do that. Obviously, he doesn't listen. You know, he thinks that every girl is into him, but it's probably just more so a few of them were being into him. The rest were just like being nice to him and whatnot. He also pretends as if nothing is wrong. Playing denial over and over and over again because he doesn't know how to create a healthy resolution. One example of this is there's a moment where I was like in the car with him, and like few hours before, like he was upset about something, right? And I asked him about it, and then he just didn't, tell me, just try to shift the mood and try to be positive about it, and it felt really weird. I'm like, that's strange. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, He leads people on with false promises and fanatical thinking. I can understand if you're like throwing ideas in the air, but he doesn't make it crystal clear that he's like gassing people up. And he doesn't know how to stick to commitments, and proves to be flaky, like repetitively, like over and over and over and over and over again. A lot of his relationships are very much conditional and transactional. And he heavily blurred the lines between what is business and what is personal. Like, he got too personal too quickly with me. When I was trying to focus like only on business stuff, he wanted to like focus on like, he wanted to be distracted and like talk about like, memes and like personal stuff and stuff and everything. And I don't mind doing that, but there's a time and place doing those types of things. He gets himself trapped into helping people with things because in the past he put himself out there or bragged about his abilities. What's that right here? And so they keep asking for his help, but he doesn't even know how to back out and admit that he doesn't know how to do it. So he would be like, oh yeah, I'm capable of doing XYZ. I can do da da da. So then when push comes to shove, when they're actually asking him for help, he's like, oh, never mind. I'm just going to back out and like not do it, Or it's like he claims or he says that he wants to do it, but again, it's just like, it's very half-hearted efforts. As far as half-hearted efforts go, this is what you call somatic manipulation, right? So you would give a little bit as far as breadcrumbing goes, right? But then you would withhold resources and information just to get other people to come to you and chase you and allure you to get what they need out of you. And again, when other people are coming towards him and chasing after him, it makes him feel like, oh yeah, I'm needed because you need me for da-da-da. Again, this is what you call somatic manipulation, where it's like you're withdrawing and you're withholding like a lot of things so you have more power and more control over things. So, that way you can just attract other people to come to you and whatnot. So yeah, let me read the next thing. I bet he's going to tell Julian he's lying and just a crazy girl who's obsessed with him. He already did. I already predicted that. He already told that to Mocha. He already did that. I already knew it right away. If he took like any of the voice clips that I sent, and they probably did come off as if I was a crazy person who's like obsessed and whatnot. I'm sorry, but like, how could you I'm not saying like obsession or whatnot, but like, how could you not lose your mind after dealing with an individual like that you deeply cared about? And, you're thrown in like all of these loops and all of these flights of fancy where it's like nothing is ever being resolved. Nothing is ever being worked on. You put your heart and dedication into someone. You cared about them so much. I sat there for like hours, like listening to, like really like attuning to his emotions and like trying to connect with him and, pay attention to, every little detail. Maybe that comes off as obsessive to me, but I don't do it to just him. I do it to everyone because I care about people and I care about being present with people and their pain and connecting with them in that way. So after all the times when he felt suicidal or he felt depressed and I tried my best to cheer him up and I tried to do things that make him feel better, and then on the other hand, it felt like it wasn't good enough, I'm just like, well, if you don't want me to be around, I'll just leave. If you really don't want me to be around, I'll just leave, because it's like, I can't be doing this weird back and forth with you. It's too much heartache on me. So whatever, if he ever says like anything or calls me that I'm crazy or whatnot, okay, fine. I could give a shit less. Before I was really concerned about that, but now I'm just like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm not insecure to the point where it's like I actually believe it. And even if I am, what does that matter? It doesn't change his behavior and what he's done. It hasn't changed my behavior and what I've done. What happened. Not not saying I'm offended from what you're saying, but it's sort of insulting to the actual musicians that work their ass off to create music, as if someone can live a leisurely life and have time to be involved in creating drama with all these random people while also creating all this music and running groups. People don't seem to appreciate the amount of time that goes into making music. There's a strange idea that it's a product of genius or some sort of divine being that grants people with quote-unquote music. The amount of time and energy needed to be able to create a professional product is absolutely ridiculous. Of course, he will never be a professional musician if he thinks that he can just half his way to success. He puts in a lot of dedication and work into his music. I know that for sure. But as far as his half-hearted attempts go, it's only his half-hearted attempts when it comes to amateur idols and amateur girls and whatnot. As far as me seeing the way that he works and whatnot, he is a workaholic. He does work hard on his music. Don't get me wrong on that, because I've seen his stuff behind the scenes when I was working with him. But, again, going back to the point where he was dealing with these girls in particular, right? I can understand, completely understand, the mindfuckery when it comes to with all those situations and whatnot. I mean, it's like I agree. It's like I see both perspectives and whatnot. So let me see. I hope there's not too many things that I can because I don't want to make this too long. I mean, I've already made it pretty long. I want to make sure that I'm able to wrap this up at around 10 because this is a pretty long stream. So dominating conversations. For him to blow off steam, he would talk for hours and hours and hours, like you said. Also confirming what I said, waste incredible amounts of time, right? And like I said before, the patience that I had dealing with this individual, he tested my patience over and over and over and over, dealing with these kinds of things. And I can somewhat understand because he has ADHD and he was constantly distracted and sidetracked from focusing on work. But the reality of his life is actually really mundane and dull, despite how fanatical it makes it seem. He's very much ungrounded. He's always in his head, but not planted in reality. And the only times that he's really able to focus is putting his energy into something that's more hands-on, and whatnot. I'm led to assume, not even assume, I know that deep down he's just a very lonely individual and has an incredible heart, a very incredibly hard time genuinely connecting to others. The caveat to this is that he creates double bind situations, damned if you do, damned if you don't, where if you call him out on his BS, he gets defensive on it. Because that's the thing, right? He says that he prefers one-on-one conversations to solve things with you, but then when you call him out, he gets defensive about it. So then what do, right? You want to talk to other people and be like, hey, the person that I care about is having an issue and I want to talk about it. Oh, no, but he doesn't want other people to talk about it either. So it's what do you want me to do? Do you want me to go and talk to you one-on-one and we can solve this together? Oh, I can't solve this with you together. I need to go get outside help. And no, and another thing is that he overshares to the wrong types of folks. He would overshare about a lot of things, and always shit talking about something, right? So he would accuse others for talking shit when he would very much do the same thing. Now, me coming on stream and talking about all these things, you can say a lot of this is quote unquote shit talking and whatnot, but I'm not saying this as the point of me purposely wanting to hurt him and whatnot, but these are things that I have experienced and I've dealt with, firsthand. Not only firsthand, not even just me, but other individuals have also dealt with this firsthand. Let's see. Are you saying his work ethics in private things as Makina or work ethic as Ryo? Makina, that's what I mean. His work ethic, well, he goes by different stage names and stuff like that because he's a ghost producer. So he goes by these different stage names, whether it be Grilled Cheese, Makina, Team Youkai, Ryo, and Ryo himself. Again, I will go more about counter arguments in just a moment, because I definitely have a lot to say as far as counter arguments go, as far as is this really Ryo? Is what you're telling, is this actually him? And whatnot. Yeah. So I'll go into that in just a moment. Oh my gosh. Like there's too many things. There's like too. I'm really apologize for this being lengthy, because it's just like there's too many things that he's done that's like really hurt people, and it's just the fact that I had to write a whole fucking laundry list of this just goes to show that like this is like so much mindfuckery. Anyway, going back to it, he makes threats to leave or abandon you to get a reaction. I know that I dealt with this, and it's really hurt me, At first I was sad about it, but then later on, but I mean, like, at first I was sad about it, but the whole entire time I never even stopped him from leaving. And I think, again, he says this because he wants to test whether or not you're going to stay with him or not. I told him multiple times, if he wanted me gone, he could have just, he could have just left. He could have just, said goodbye to me. I'm not going to get in your way and whatnot, but, whatnot. Sorry. I'm like, word garble and whatnot. Hypocritical, cannot keep a secret, lives a double life. He lives a double life where it's like he has like these like secret or mysterious lives that are like going on about him. He's like, okay, I'm gonna overshare about like these details about my life, but then I'm not gonna tell you about like anything else. And again, it's understandable to have privacy, that's totally fine, but why did you open up to the wrong types of people and say certain things? It's like you're trying to make them curious. It's like you want them to like, see into you and whatnot, like it's a weird attempt at communication. It's a weird attempt at grabbing someone's attention. It's not appropriate. What is that? Has a problem when it comes to sharing, oversharing. Already said that. And then afterwards, he could be impulsive and he doesn't think about consequences despite how paranoid he is. Already went about that. So I think at this point, a lot of this stuff is just reiteration of my previous points. So I apologize for cycling in and out of that. Addictive behaviors. Like I said before, he deals with workaholism. I can tell that he probably has some sort of caffeine addiction, some sex addiction, or some porn addiction of some sort. Also, going back to the point where he's not grounded in reality, there's a lot of excessive daydreaming and escapism with him. Like he's not here. He's just not, grounded and whatnot. Pain, right? He would go and make pain a competition where he would say like, oh, I had it worse. He would minimize other people's pain in order to be like, oh, well, I'm the one who's suffering most, when he doesn't realize like, no, everyone's suffering just in different ways. He would have unnecessary hostility towards others over I wouldn't say simple misunderstandings, but just over misunderstandings or disagreements and stuff like that. In a situation, oversharing is probably a manipulation tactic. It might be a manipulation tactic, either an intentional manipulation tactic, or it might be unintentional, as in like, because he has difficulty connecting with other people, like he doesn't know how to connect with other people and whatnot. So, whether or not, like, I feel very split when it comes to him, because I feel like on one part, like, he doesn't really want to be like that and he does want to get better, but then the other inner demon just keeps overriding him and keep controlling him, and he's like, no, do the fucked up thing. No, do the fucked up thing. At least that's my experience when it comes to him. And I'm not even trying to say this because I still have like some sort of like, I'd say some sort of connection to him, but this is just something that like I've noticed with him despite everything that's transpired. So it doesn't, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether he was like intentionally or unintentionally being malicious. He did fucked up shit at the end of the day, period. All right. So I want to give like some examples of, his manipulative behaviors towards me, now that you're talking about manipulation. one convention that I was at when I was debuting my first original song that he created for me was at Techo, right? Was that, you know, he went off and like blew up at like, now I woke up like really early in the morning just to ensure that my performance like was going really smoothly. And I told him like my plans ahead of time. I'm like, hey, can we keep things like organized? Like I have like schedule and all that. Like I told him all these things ahead of time. Early in the morning, he blew up at one of the sound guys. Oh wow, thank you.
Someone donated $10.
Thank you for donating to me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so going back to my debut original live, my first original single, right? At that moment, he blew up at one of the sound guys because of some sort of misunderstanding, and I didn't agree with the way that he dealt with it. Like, I understood where he was coming from. I can understand, like, I understood his frustration, you know? His I'd say, like, his feelings were valid, but the way that he went about it was, like, absolutely fucking horrendous and absolutely wrong and completely unprofessional on his behalf, you know? And even, like, before then, right? I felt that there was something off with him. Like, I felt like he was just really upset, like, the whole entire time, and I didn't even know why. So in the car, I would be crying for hours and hours and hours. I wouldn't know why I was crying for hours and hours and hours. And I was crying because I just, like, again, I'm very empathic. Like, I really could feel his emotions. I felt like he was really upset or something, you know? So when I was crying in front of him and I wanted to comfort him and I wanted to be there to support him because he was having an episode, right? I didn't like the fact that he looked at me with a cold look on his face and he said that what I was crying in front of him was crocodile tears. And I'm like, no, you fucking idiot. I'm genuinely trying to comfort you. I'm genuinely trying to empathize with you. And there are times where I would reach out to him in those moments where I would look at him and I'm like, listen, I know that you were having like a really bad time. Like, I know that you were having a really bad time, but can we just please, like, do something to at least make you feel better? Is there anything we can do to, like, make you feel better? Like, you know, let's just not focus on that. I wouldn't say, like, let's not focus on that, but let's just try to make the rest of the convention weekend good, all right? Can we, like, focus on that? And he was just, again, really stuck in his own pain, really focused in on his own misery, that he just disregarded everything else. And, you know, it's infuriating trying to connect with a person like that, you know? And he would do these things where, you know, he would say that, okay, you know, you're on your own. For no reason, by the way. He would tell me, take his anger out of me for just a basic, simple misunderstanding, be like, oh, you're on your own, Julian. And that left me broken because I'm like, why would you say that? I thought we were just trying to work on having like a good performance. Like, you helped me create the song. I wanted to make sure that it was good, you know? I wanted to make sure that like everything ran smoothly. And the whole entire time when I was trying my best not to focus on him and whatnot. Like, I couldn't help because like I wanted to connect to him. I wanted to comfort him. I wanted to console him. But on the other hand, I'm like, I was thinking, I cannot focus on this because this is not the right time. I have to focus on performing. So in the back area behind the curtains, I had to ask my friend to help me with my makeup because I was crying a lot, you know? And the whole entire time when I was on stage, I wanted to get off. I wanted to get off stage. And I literally sorry, this sounds triggering, but I literally wanted to jump off the roof at that moment because I didn't even know what was going on in that moment. You know, because, and I was, you know, faking a smile the whole entire time because I'm just like, in that moment, I'm like thinking, I'm a performer. I cannot focus on this. I can't. Even, you know, my photos on my Julie.live website and my press kit and stuff like that, I was really trying my best not to cause a scene and show people how distraught I was over that whole entire deal. Not for me, but more so I was just wondering, what the hell is going on with you, dude? You know, like, I don't know. But yeah, like, imagine trying to deal with that. And like, I didn't want to bring any further attention to it because it's like, I don't want other people to come in and like say something about it. You know, if I wanted someone to say about it, I would only wanted like my immediate close friend who was with me. I only wanted to be with them. I didn't want other outsiders to get involved in like a situation like that, because it's like that kind of like attention only further exacerbates the issue and whatnot. So, yeah. The next thing that happened that was another offense to me was that, you know, this is at a smaller convention during AmbiFlora's debut live performance, right? So, what is that? Tama had issues with Ryo, right? And Tama had issues with Ryo because, like, she tried to state a boundary with him. He crossed it. And because of that, you know, there was just, like, this weird underlying tension that were between the two. And because Tama knew of the whole Teko situation beforehand, right? It also gave her more, like, leeway to just not trust him and just be like, well, see, you know, you treated her poorly. I don't trust you, you know? And there was like this weird tension, this weird animosity. Another thing, like, he was supposed to be focused on, you know, helping out with the performance, and he did. He actually did help out with the performance and you know, trying to get things set up. But at the same time, he was very distracted, you know, because he was going around talking to like all these other cosplayers and all these other girls. And it's just, again, it was just a mess, right? So I told Tama and him, right? You guys be there, settle your own stuff, right? The whole argument went all the way to 2 a.m. He was there, like, having, like, this whole entire fit. Like, I don't know. Like, it was a whole entire, he has psychosis. So he's going through this whole psychotic episode, right? And he just blew it up on everyone. And while I was empathizing with him and, you know, I wanted to be there. Again, I wanted to be there to figure out what the hell was going on. In my mind, at the same time, I'm like, oh, God, great. See? Now you made a situation even worse. Where it's like, now you got all these cosplayers that are like, now you got all these people that are looking at you, and now they have more ammunition to go against you and say like, oh, well, see, because they acted up, da-da-da-da, right? So again, both scenarios, I didn't know, like, it just seemed like those instances of him flaring up, it really felt like it literally came out of nowhere. Like, even now to this day, I'm even thinking like, what are the reasons as to why he acted in such an abrupt manner? It was just like so intense and so abrupt that like it really felt like it came out of nowhere. Like how, you know? And it just leads me to think like, God, like, as much as like I really want to be there for you, I really want to support you, and I want to extend, you know, my love and compassion towards you, right? This is a public embarrassment. How can I be proud? How can I be proud to say, yeah, this is the producer that I worked with. This is the producer that I cared about. This is the producer that I really wanted to be friends with. How can I be proud and say, no, this isn't? Because you're just a public embarrassment. You're not only a public embarrassment, but you're a nuisance to other people around you. You know, you don't even listen to other people. You're so self-focused on yourself that you're not even paying attention to the surroundings around you. You're not even paying attention to how it affects other people. Sorry, I didn't mean to get all riled up. It's just, even just thinking about it, I don't even know what happened. Like, I still, like, even when I'm trying to, like, logically process what happened, you know? Because all I really wanted, simple. I just wanted to create an idol group. I just wanted to have fun. And I just wanted to make music. Was that too hard to ask for? Was it so hard to ask for to just have a normal fucking life? To have a normal thing. And I understand that there's going to be conflict. I understand that there are things that are not going to be running smoothly. But it's supposed to be a team effort. We're supposed to be in this together. We're not supposed to be against one another. And even if you had issues with other people, that's fine. Why me? Why did you have to take it out on me? What did I ever do to deserve any of that? I still to this day, you know, I tried thinking over and over, I must have done something. No, I didn't do anything. I really don't think I've done anything wrong to this individual. Maybe there are times where I've hurt him and, you know, but I will own up to that and I will make up to that, but it's just like, oh God, it's so infuriating, you know? Sorry. Let me read this. When I used to stream, a different ex-boyfriend of mine would be in the other room. He would be watching my streams, and then I would hear him get angry and shout things from the other room, like, ugh, this dumb bitch always talks about boring shit. Obviously, that's a sign that they're insecure, but let me continue reading this. When I was just trying to have fun talking to people, I would say I have to go to the bathroom, and he would insult me, saying how I am not being interesting enough or not sexy, and calling me names. Then I have to go back and pretend like I wasn't on the verge of tears. It's so hard. Thinking about it still makes me want to cry too. That's horrible. That's horrible. I'm sorry I had to go through that. You know, when you think of like having a significant other or a boyfriend or even just a friend in general, what they're supposed to do is encourage you and uplift you and not demean you and destroy you and make you lose every single sense of part of yourself. They're supposed to encourage you to become a better person. How can you call yourself a friend? How can you call yourself a friend if all you want to do is sabotage everything that you touch? I'm sorry. How can you call yourself a producer? A producer, produce, means to create something. That's not creation. You're dismantling everything. You're tearing it apart. That's not creation. God, that fucking infuriates me. Sorry. I was just really connecting with you on that moment. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Hi, I'm back. Is it true a narcissist has parents that is narcissists? Yes. I can attest to this, that his parents are very much like that. I have an old YouTube channel that I don't like to watch the videos because he was behind the camera and would shout at me every time I made a mistake between takes, and I would try hard not to cry. It's so hard to watch myself trying to act like everything's okay when everything's falling apart. Narcissists don't necessarily have narcissistic parents. I don't know whether or not that statement is true or not. I think it's all entirely dependent on the individual. I'm sorry that you went through that. I give you my virtual hugs. Thank you. What is that? It'll take time, but as you're distanced from these bad people, it'll slowly get better. As long as you follow your dreams and don't give up, it'll work out somehow. The right people will come. I'm sorry, I didn't want to make you cry. We are both crying people. I'm sorry. I cried for you. No, it's okay. Crying is cathartic for me. It's necessary. We need to let it out. It's important. It's important to let it out. I mean, it's like literally that what you said. Like, he only wanted things done his way, or it's wrong. You know, when it's like there's multiple ways to adapt to something, and there's not always like a fixated right thing. You don't have to be like correct in your own manner all the time. You know? That's the whole point of collaborating with another person, man. You're sharing ideas. You're connecting with them. You're bonding with them. You're learning from them. It's not just like, okay, you're the producer and the idol's learning from you. No, it should be a reciprocal exchange. I'd like to think that you could probably learn shit from me too. I know I'm not the best at everything, you know? But it's like, how can you sit here and be like, yeah, I want to collaborate with people. I want to create cool shit with people. I want to create all these great things with people. But then it's like, again, lacking cohesion, lacking, it just gets my, it gets on my nerves, anyway. You know, finally, another thing that I have to say is that, I don't like how he wanted comfort and he wanted support, you know, but he won't support you in return unless it's for his benefit or something along those lines. Which, you know, in most cases, at least I feel like he's just gonna use and like take you for granted and whatnot. Like, I very much feel like everything that I've done was taken for granted. The times where, you know, I given him gifts, as far as gifts as in like, you know, birthday gifts and whatnot, or the times where I try my best to comfort him, I just feel like, wow, did none of that mean anything to you? Did it mean nothing to you? I guess, whatever, I guess I'll just go fuck myself. I don't know. I don't know, whatever, you know, but it's unfortunate that I have to say this, but it's like, at the same time, I almost expect it, because it's not just a pattern that happened with him, but like, so many people have already treated me in that regard. So many other people have already taken advantage of my kindness and taken advantage of me and just left me and just abandoned me and whatnot. I understand that he never wanted to be abandoned. I don't want to be abandoned either, but like, for fuck's sake, you don't have to be like that, you know? I'm sure there are other various points that I can like talk about, but I'm just gonna stop here for now. With all that being said, getting to the nitty gritty of everything as far as counter arguments go, now I'm really gonna talk about, you know, the previous comments that people were addressing. I believe personally, without a shadow of a doubt, that this is the real Ryo Supercell. I'm going to argue this point. If I'm wrong, oh well. I'm that solid on my convictions. I don't know. I just have a gut feeling. I truly, like, even everything that I've stated before, everything that I've listed out before, you know, a lot of people will be like, no, this isn't. If someone's exhibiting traits like that, they can't possibly be him. No, I truly believe it. You know, I think a lot of people might say that because they have this image, like this pristine image of like, well, you know, a producer is supposed to adhere to like this sort of like image and whatnot. And they're supposed to be like you know, they're just supposed to fit into this cookie cutter mold of how other people imagine a producer to be. But I don't know. I truly believe that this is the real deal. Like, this is actually him. You know, the only thing, like, and again, going back to the whole point when it came to like music and whatnot, like, music was fine. Music was like the secondary thing. The first thing that I really cared about was just honestly having a genuine connection, you know? And it's not even that like, you know, even though I had romantic feelings towards him and whatnot, and I have I have unconditional love for him, I still felt guilty, you know, because he had a significant other, you know? I felt guilty the whole entire time. I felt disgusted with myself every single time, because I'm just like thinking, why do I have such unconditional love for a person that I just, you know, it's strange, it's weird, you know? But I only wanted him to be honest with himself. If he didn't care about me in that regard, and I even told him multiple times, like, if you don't love me, just say it. If you don't care about me, then just say it. You know, I mean, like, obviously, clearly, with the behavioral patterns that he exhibited, I think it comes to prove to the point that, you know, unfortunately, it seems like he never really cared about me. You know? Oh, well. Now, I mean, most people are on the stance of being skeptical towards him, but I'm going to be firm on my stance. Maybe just to, not maybe, but probably just to be, for the sake of banter and whatnot. So, now I'm going to get into potential counter arguments. Now, potential counter arguments that people have either in the comments or people that have explicitly stated to me beforehand, right? Personally, I'm really confused about this being Ryo Supercell because he has posts on his face online and I'm gonna definitely get to that. I think it'd be a very deep rabbit hole if it were quote unquote Ryo. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think there are plenty of toxic producers, tons of absolutely rotten people in the industry. Agreed. Maybe the real Ryo is a shithead. Maybe. I know nothing, but I still don't see how he could be Ryo. Now, some potential, things that people would say to me was, quote, if that was the real Ryo, he would log into his official account and he would email them from there, right? End quote. Now, there might be reasons as to why he would not be so quick to do that, so he could either continue his sneaky behavior without getting these girls involved in the professional industry so much. He did tell me ahead of time that he was testing, to see, like, who was the right fit and whatnot. Now, going back to your point where it's like, oh, yeah, he has pictures of his face online. Oh? He has pictures of his face online? He told me that he has other people that handle his social media accounts, and if that was the case, it would make sense if he weren't handling these official accounts, given how socially inept he is and impulsive if he were to run it himself. Now, going back to your argument of like, oh, quote, that does not look like Ryo because he already revealed his face, end quote. What's to say that the photos on his official account are the real him either? Now, let's take into consideration other Vocaloid producers. Hachi, which is Kenshi Yonezu, KZ Livetune, Oster Project, other various Vocaloid producers. A lot of them have already came out of the woodworks and revealed their faces with multiple photos. Not even multiple photos, but they've shown up in like, TV shows and whatnot, and videos and whatnot. So if they were able to come out after all this time, why hasn't Ryo Supercell caught up to that point? You would think, him having like almost about the same amount of veterancy as these, if not more veterancy than these Vocaloid producers, you would think, well, he should be well established in his career to already reveal his face at this point, right? Correct? I don't know. That might be something to take into consideration or question. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason as to why he hasn't like shown up in like actual videos, or he like, the video, the photo that he's shown of him is like actually him per se, Supposedly he was so young when he became famous as Ryo. Yes. Sony did all sorts of shit to hide how young he actually was to avoid thank you for pointing that out, to avoid legal problems, including showing fake face photos. Someone who actually has a secret that they want to keep a secret from most, they either reveal it or not at all. He already went through enough effort to try to prove to you that he is Ryo. Yeah, I don't know. Do you know? Who knows? Kami-sama knows. Another point. Quote, why would someone of his skill level bother to work with cosplayers or overseas idols? Oh, this is something that I've always questioned him. I'm like thinking, excuse me? Me? Why are you... Me, out of all people. Crusty, dusty ass, cracked up, jacked up voice. Me? Huh. Why? Why? Doshite, Nande, why? Well, here's some things. In his interviews, he said that he intended to find performers overseas, and his work is heavily influenced by American music. And he's also stated before that he wanted to, like, go back to his roots and like you know, find people that are like more like obscure and not like as what is that? Not as substantiated. I don't know what the fucking term is. Like, you know, not as a fucking A plus 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 plus. I don't know. Do you want to lower your standards? Okay, fine. I know that there's other better vocalists out there. I mean, like I told him, like there's other better you know, why are you working with me? Why are you working with these girls? I don't get it. You know, or maybe it's another way for him to take advantage of the situation. It could either be either or, and or, either and or, I or and or. You know, he's an attention seeker. Oh, of course. He likes leaking his secret so he can act mysterious and lure people in. I mean, yeah. That's part of the shtick. That's part of the shtick. You know? Another thing that I want to add to the point is that he cycled through multiple performers like over and over and over again. There's no quote unquote, I wouldn't say official, but there's no like solid vocalist as far as like Supercell goes, and like all of them were guest vocalists. You know, if that were the case, given how much he sucks at socializing with people, it would be no wonder why he bounces from like one singer to the next singer to the next singer to the next. You know. Quote, how can you be so sure that this is truly him? End quote. Personally, I do not fundamentally agree with what both Ryo Supercell, like with what both Ryo Supercell and Don subscribe to as far as their principles go, right? I made my stance very clear that I very much detest anonymity and lack of transparency. I believe as a performer, your music and your art is to convey yourself in a vulnerable state. I think it's very hypocritical for Ryo Supercell to portray the message of raw expression and vulnerability, especially in his interviews, where one of the things that he said in there where it's like, well, what advice would you give to other people? And then literally the advice says, be honest with yourself. Now that's a lie. You lied, you freaking liar. So yeah, these are just not principles that he doesn't adhere to. Both Ryo Supercell and then both Don. If they are the same person or they aren't the same person, it doesn't really matter. Now, if it's shown that after all of this fuckery, right? And he's really adamant, like, yeah, no, I'm Ryo Supercell. Yeah, dude, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, I do, like, all this, like, EQ compression, like, da-da-da-da. Like, he's, like, they're showing me, like, all this stuff. Yeah, I'm Ryo Supercell. Yeah, I'm, like, going out and I'm telling other people that I'm Ryo Supercell. If it is revealed that this is not the real him, it'd be very fucked up for him to impersonate someone and use their stage name to prey on other people. Yeah. Other points. I think, well, these are points that other people have brought up to me. I think the reason for being so secretive is Sony forces. Oh, thank you. I think you already wrote that. Sony forces him to keep his identity private because of child label concerns. You know, so if he was actually lying, he just manipulated you into keeping silent about it. And then another thing is, like, honestly, though, if he was telling the truth about everything, he kind of fucked himself because he wasn't supposed to tell anyone, but then he did it to impress them, and then he screwed those people over giving them an incentive to leak his secret. Now, my question to that point is, what if that was part of his plan the entire time? Like, what if he just leaves trails behind? And I told him this too. I'm just like, dude, you are sloppy. If you really want it to be secret, like, I'm like a rat, okay? So if I were to like go out and like keep secrets or like keep things hidden, like I know how to be elusive, right? He makes it so, like, he makes it obvious. Like, you know, so like, what if he's just leaving trails behind because he secretly likes getting caught with his pants down? I don't know. Oh, that could be a thing. Let me see. Let me read this. I mean, convincing people that he's this big shot in the Japanese vocaloid scene would be a great guise in getting work. Yeah. He doesn't think that he has enough merits. He doesn't think that he has enough merits as a person to be interesting without coming up a bizarre Hannah Montana fantasy. He also does not think that his music could stand on his own. Hence, this ridiculous story. I would love to have a conversation with this guy in Japanese since he's supposedly fluent. That That's a whole legal battle in the making. Would very much like to see how that goes down. Oh yeah, I'd like to see how that goes down too if it ever comes to fruition. I think he has you so brainwashed that even if he doesn't speak Japanese as well as he says, you might just say that he pretended to be bad at Japanese to keep his cover. I think you might have spent enough time with him to know that he's not a mastermind. I don't think he's trying to get caught. I don't even think he thinks that far ahead. He just wants to impress the girl in front of him. That's also a pretty valid point too. All of these are very valid points. By the way, because this guy keeps confusing the shit out of me, is this twin flame guy because that guy is this the twin flame guy because that guy looks nothing like Ryo? Yeah. Well, twin flame again is like a very tricky term, right? But he is the catalyst for my spiritual awakening. So he is my twin flame catalyst. Now, to say if he was like actually my twin flame, my real twin flame, we would have to see. Because the whole thing when it comes to twin flames is that like twin flame is like more so an energetic frequency. It's an energetic like concept, right? So if this person turns out to be just a catalyst and just that, and he's just not like, you know, he opened me up like to my spiritual awakening, but he's not going to be part of like the rest of my physical spiritual journey and whatnot. You know, then we could probably say like, you know, everything that he was doing was just all fuck all and just to fuck around, and he wasn't even serious about music in the first place and whatnot, you know? If he wants to get caught as anything, it's as being a liar. Oh yeah, of course. That's true. That is 110% true. He's a liar. You know? Yeah. I mean, again, there's like a lot of convolution. It's a very convoluted thing. It didn't have to be so convoluted, but unfortunately, the story had to unfold that way. And that's the cards that I've dealt with. That's the cards that I'm dealt with, and this is the situation that I'm in, so whatever. Literally, all I could say is whatever. Now, moral of the story. Do you have proof that he can actually make music? What do you mean, do I have... Wait, do I have proof that he can actually make music? What do you mean? He has a SoundCloud. Makina_official on SoundCloud. And I've worked with him in person. I mean, like, I can actually what is that? On Wednesday, I'll put videos of, like, you know, him working, like actual like progress of him working behind the scenes and stuff like that, because he does know how to make music. But the thing is like, whether or not he can actually make music, what does that have to do with anything? Even if he did know how to make music, which he does know how to make music, by the way, even if he didn't, right? It doesn't really change the fact that he's still a liar. So, yeah. Now, the moral of the story, getting to my final thing that wraps this whole entire stream together, because it's, oh god, it's a fucking long stream, right? And I know he's watching this, so hi. You know, now, it's not the fact what he did was the major issue to me. Well, I mean, that is a major issue. But it's the fact that to this day, he has not taken ownership of the damage that he's did. And he did not make the necessary steps to repair it at all. Like, radio silence, completely. Complete radio silence, and then more fuckery on his other ends with other people. So, this also goes to say, it doesn't even just apply to just him, but also the same people who've also wronged me in this scenario. You know, I slightly made amends with some of these people, but I still don't trust them. You know, to each their own and whatnot. I found it interesting on how this on SoundCloud, he didn't make it clear that the Mika Corona song was a remix or give credit to the original creator. Huh. Since I'm not allowed to fight this guy, I'm gonna go look at his music. Yeah, you could go do so. SoundCloud at Makina_official or a Makina_EDM. Just look a Makina_EDM on Google. I'm sure you can find it. I take that back. There is something on there about other people's work. I didn't look closely enough. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm an idol. I'm not a musician. What do I fucking know about music? Some things, not everything. I'm just an idol. I just go on stage. I'm the little puppet. I sing into the mic and I'm like, hey, hello everyone. I'm singing the thing. But it's still not really clear. Yeah, again, it's I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, to him, to you watching this, you know exactly who you are, right? As a producer, it is your duty to exhibit healthy leadership by taking proper care of the vocalists and idols that you work with. Period. All right? So when you neglect to take care of yourself, that in turn reflects back on how you provide to other people. And while I understand and I empathize with the circumstances and everything that's happened in your background and whatnot, you have to acknowledge that you can't grow in a toxic environment. Speaking of leadership, by the way, because you are a so-called producer that wants to be in control of everything and whatnot, can you really exhibit proper, healthy leadership skills? Things collapse because you didn't listen to logic and reason. You know? You allowed your emotions, not to say that you're not allowed to have emotions. Of course, you're valid to have emotions. But you allowed that and your irrational fears to cloud your judgment. So, 3 choices when it comes to you, Don, right? Dealing with this, you can either A, rot the rest of your life away, be a slave to your addictions, and continue to destroy your others, including yourself, and also probably avoid it and just not even like confront the issue at all and just pretend. Let's just pretend that this didn't happen. Okay. You can continue living your life like that. B, because you're so suicidal all the time, right? And you know what? If you call me heartless for saying this, fine, by all means. You've drove me past the point where I wanted to kill myself too. So to each their own. You can die being a miserable piece of shit. So if you do decide to kill yourself, I already lost it in me to care. What you do with your empty shell of a life is entirely upon you. You broke me and other people way too many times to deserve any type of grievances. Or you can see. You can continue moving forward by walking in your faith. Everything that you aspire to be, all the dreams and all the things that you've wanted to accomplish in this lifetime, right? You said you want it. You could talk the talk. Can you walk the walk? Another thing is that, because I firmly have this instilled belief that you really are Ryo Supercell. Are you seriously going to sully your artistic integrity with all of this, right? Did you forget your roots? Did you forget where you even started from when you first made Vocaloid music? You didn't even anticipate on making it this big. I mean, it was all luck, right? You just got lucky, right? I mean, you also said in your interviews that even if you don't make it big, you would simply continue making music just for your own satisfaction. So why not just do that? Instead of, trying to drag along other people in your mess. Another thing is, I noticed that the things that you projected onto other people, as far as like, oh no, we have to do this because it's supposed to be professional. The industry says that we have to do this. You guys are not professional enough. Da-da-da-da-da. Right? Or it's like, you telling other people, you're not going to be able to make it in the big leagues. And you're looking down on people as if they're little ants, saying, you're not allowed to make it in the big leagues. Is that a projection of your own internal insecurities, where you feel like you might not be able to make it in the big leagues? I mean, you did say you wanted a Grammy, right? But again, why would you want to sell your artistic integrity over this? And then also, keep in mind that as a Vocaloid producer, you start off as a niche. You aren't meant for everyone. You have unique traits to offer to the table. And I think as far as your music and the caliber that goes, extending what dedication that you have to your craft, right? Do you really think that catering to the lowest common denominator would be justifiable in that sense? Would you think all your hard work and effort would be okay for just creating more shit upon shit upon shit upon shit? You know, I'd say it makes you just as shitty as these mainstream artists that you so-called want to work with. All right. So it should be understood that the music industry and overall Hollywood culture is prevalent, I'd say, with demonic possession. At this point, it's not even a conspiracy theory anymore, quote unquote conspiracy theory anymore, because many celebrities are being exposed left and right for their predatory nature and or how they suffered at the expense of giving up their own innocence, you know, when they're young, you know, when you get into fame and whatnot. Like, when you're young and you get into fame, that shit taints you. You lose all sense of your own childhood or your own, your own sense of normalcy, you know, your own natural state of being, because you're too busy trying to be a doormat for other people to walk on all over you as a performer. You know? Oh yeah, you're 28 years old and you're almost nearing 30, almost a decade ago. You have to keep in check that your mindset going into this when you're a teenager is not as distorted as it is now. You know, it's like I said before, this is what fame does to people. You let all that shit get into your head without understanding the intrinsic value of being a human being in the first place. In fact, I'd say it's really horrible how cold and robotic you have become when you make music that is very warm and sentimental and touches the soul in a certain way, you know? So imagine if this was the real Ryo Supercell, and then other people try to connect the dots and they see that. Like, I don't know, does that make any sense? You know? So, not only do you owe it to yourself to clean up your own act, but you also owe it to the people that you've hurt along the way. Keep in mind, the fans who supported you thus far deserve transparency. Whether they supported you as Makina or whether they supported you as Ryo Supercell, it doesn't really matter. The people who have supported you thus far deserve actual transparency. All right? So, overall, it's your choice. If you want to fuck up your life further than you already have, by all means, I'm not going to fucking stop you. But don't you dare ever drag other people into your shithole ever again. Because if you do, guess who's coming? And I mean, I'm going to go and tell all these people, I'll be like, yeah, these are my experiences. Yep, I can attest to all these things. I've tried my best. You better watch out. Yeah. Anyway, let me see. Let me read this. You didn't answer me. I didn't answer because I only read comments in section. I said in the beginning of the live stream that I only read comments in sections and stuff like that because I want to make sure that I get my notes done first and then I answer the comments second. So I do apologize for that. What is that? What is... I ask you so you can confirm he really is Ryo Supercell, because any producer that can say, how do you know for a fact this particular producer is Ryo Supercell? I don't. I'm only going off of my intuitive beliefs right now. But the thing is, like, not only my intuitive beliefs, but also my personal experiences working with him, right? So I cannot confirm or deny whether or not this is Ryo Supercell. It's literally up in the air and it's really left up into interpretation. I have a firm belief that this is Ryo Supercell. Other people are very skeptical to that point, and that's completely valid. You can have that point of view, and you're very valid in having that point of view, right? At the end of the day, this is someone that is going around the community claiming that he's Ryo Supercell and then creating problematic situations in said communities and whatnot. That is something that definitely needs to be looked into. What is that? I take that back. There is some sort of thing on here about other people's work. I didn't look closely enough, but it's still not really clear. Oh, sorry. I already read that. I'm about to use my music third eye to peer into his work. What I don't get is that guy you posted pictures before. He's young as fuck. He's obviously not old enough to been Supercell. Again, another thing is, like, his age is unclear. I don't think his age has been confirmed. You know, I think in some of the photos that he wants to be portrayed as like an older guy and whatnot, but you know, again, it's very like muddy water. It's still not completely clear. You know, only people that have no confidence in their art want external justification. From what Makina says, he was very young when he was in Supercell. So Coney covered that up by putting out pictures of an older guy. Yeah, that's another thing that I want to say. Another thing, legally, you have been you have to be credited on a song by your legal name. So it'd be easy to confirm if he worked on those Vocaloid songs or not. I know this because I officially had my songs distributed. That doesn't even make sense because teenagers get promoted in the industry all the time. But the thing is that because because Don lives in America, right? It'd be weird because of, you know, child labor laws and stuff. Like, if it was in Japan, it would be different. Right? Because he lives in America, that's a different story and whatnot. So, yeah, because he'd have to been like 14 or something. Yeah, exactly. You know, he would have to be around that. Wait, why would you say, hold on, who are you? 14, that's a very specific number. Who are you? I don't know you. Quit him. Anyway, yeah. I guess to really end the stream, because it's like 10:32. Oh my god, it's long. But thank you again for like staying on here for that long. I will signal boost this to not only people in the idol community, but also all over the internet. I encourage others to follow suit so they can be aware of his behavior and whatnot. And again, either tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to be putting up timestamps so people can just skip to individual sections. Like, if they don't want to like pay attention, like, they can just skip to that point. If there's anyone else that is affected by Don's behavior, I also encourage them to be brave enough to come forward. And then finally, to Don himself, I will not go easy on him. It's confirmed that people like you are a danger and a menace to society. That's not a threat. That's a promise. Yeah. You told us he's 28. Oh. Sorry. I'm stupid. Sorry. Me and my paranoid brain. I'm stupid. I did say 28. You're right. There's literally teenagers who've been producers in the industry, though, and artists. I think that's his first thing on Nico Nico Doga in 2007. Yeah, that's math. Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm not good with math. You can point a gun at me when it comes to that. Ha 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 ha. I'm about to buy the Supercell 33 1/3 book because those books usually have intensive investigative journalism. All right, well, you can go do that. Yeah. Justin Bieber became mainstream at 14 too, didn't he? Yep. And again, I feel like it would be like a justifiable explanation if that were like necessarily the case, because it's like, you know, this is what fame does to people. Taints and robs you of your innocence. Oh. Yeah. Dealing with manipulative people like that make you paranoid, I get it. Thank you for understanding. Anyone has any further questions, comments, concerns that they'd like to add before I wrap everything up? Because this was a very lengthy discussion. I would need to go take a long nap. I don't know. Not nap. It's 10:34. Go to sleep. Knock myself out. I don't know. It was such a burden holding all this information in, you know? Now that it's like all out, like I just feel like, okay, I can like breathe. Ryo is a wannabe womanizing creep. Yeah, probably. Not probably. I mean, Don is, right? This guy ain't Ryo. He's a bum. That's all I gotta say. Okay? Yeah. Oh, gosh. This world is awful. Frickin' bum. Frickin' frick. Frickin' frick. What the fuck? It's a frickin' frick. Look at that. It's a frickin' frick. What is that? It's a frickin' frick. For frick. I think people like that dig into your brain and make you question reality. Oh, yeah. So I definitely don't blame you for any confusion or paranoia or anything. Yeah, like, again, me trying to distinguish, like, what's real and what's not, like, what's truth and what's reality it really fucking killed me. It really, oh my god, this dude really got in my head. Don goes after these girls one after another, yeah. I hope you feel better after saying everything. You had a busy day with lots of streaming. Rest well. Thank you. Mocha opened up about it too, yeah. She opened up about her experiences on lolcow. Again, in the description, I have screenshots and stuff like that, so, yeah. Well, that is all for tonight. I hope everyone has a good night. I hope everyone sleeps tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. And, thank you. I sincerely, genuinely appreciate. Thank you guys for joining my stream. Thank you for the $10 donation. Thank you overall for being here and having this experience with me and allowing me to talk and read off my long laundry list of notes. If you ever need to talk about it later, let me know. Sure. I think I've actually reached a point where in my healing journey where it's like, you know, I talked about like my trauma like so much to the point where it's like, it's not that I'm not willing to talk about it, but it's like, it's so tiring to talk about it like over and over and over again. And it's not that like I go like, I literally don't go around and bounce to other people like, hey, do you want to hear my traumatic experience? Hey, do you want to like, it's like, I don't do that like all the time. I just feel like, okay, once I reach a solid conclusion, because I'm a very introverted person. Like, I sit back and I process everything, like, on my own. I don't, like, say it outwardly. Like, yes, I make, like, a lot of fucking vague posts and shit, right? But I don't say, like, everything as far as, like, context goes, like, out in the open. I sit and, like, really process everything first before I go out and, like, I tell people. And if I do tell people about it, I'm actually extremely selective with the people that I talk to as far as my experiences go. I don't want to, like... At least I don't want to get into a scenario where it's like, if I do talk about it again, I don't want to feel like I'm frustrating myself just like re-remembering it and whatnot. Not to say that I shouldn't I mean, like, it's okay to remember and reflect and whatnot, but you know, I don't want it to be like a repetitive, like, emotional dumping process. You know what I mean? So, virtual hug. Thank you for hugging. I hug back. Thank you for the oxytocin. Yeah. All right. So take care and stay safe because this world is fucked up. All right. Goodbye.